Well, hello, folks. Welcome to another episode of VLV's with Poster, a self-referential, self-deprecating, self-aware podcast for VivaLaVinyl.com. And if you are listening to this voice in 2023, I cannot believe we made it, but you are logged on. And I am your very calm host today, B. Limp. You know, I caught you in a tumultuous time. Last episode I was on the run, but now I've found some respite under the tunnels of the New Vegas mini block and the dystopian future that we're all living in. Somehow, with the help of refurbulating a few mega fans down here, I'm able to withstand the 135 degree temperatures that are still rising consistently over land on the surface. And I'm not sure how long my stronghold is gonna last here. You know, I can only be hidden for so long, but I will. Oh, see, they're trying to hack me right now. Did you hear that? Yeah. You know, I can't stay static positioned for too long, but I do have just enough time to bring you an interview with a longtime VLV poster and beloved goofsman, apraxia, and we talk about a bunch of different things. You know, he's a very chill guy, and we just prattle on for like 3 hours. So I hope you enjoy it. Yeah. Like he repeats himself a lot. It's like, okay, man, I don't know. Like, yeah, I feel like you could summarize maybe that whole, and again, I haven't read it, but I feel like you could summarize that whole deal in about like 4 paragraphs, right? But maybe you could also say that about everything.
Right, but I think part of it is just that there's more to it than just his, like, I have analyzed the impact of technology on the environment, and here are my conclusions. He's got axes to grind.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
there's
Yeah.
like multiple agendas at play.
That's true. That's true. When
Uh,
you got to axe to grind, you definitely get verbose because the words are
and
like
hard
your
to say.
visceral weapon.
Now, manifestos are shorter by nature. Do we feel like this falls on the longer end of the manifesto spectrum? Because it's certainly shorter than what most people churn out in like a book.
Oh, true.
So,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, maybe that is a good example of brevity and manifesto. Maybe he was keeping
I
it
just
short.
thought I like the idea of him. Oh, we're wasting all our great content here, but
That's cool.
yeah, I love the idea of him being like Washington Post opinion columnist Ted Kaczynski. Like he only ever got that one column in, but
yeah. I would need to see him as some like round robin punditry on like the news networks now or whatever.
The problem is when you have to crank out an op-ed every 4 days for 10 years, it shows. Like,
yeah,
smart people will run out of things to talk about. So
for sure.
So he went out with a bang.
Yeah. Ew.
Oh yeah.
I am actually recording, so maybe I'll add a cool sound effect to that hilarious joke. But yeah, man. Thanks for doing this silly thing with me.
I applaud you. I think this is a great project.
Thanks. You were in the preliminary kind of like brainstorming of this, which was very not much at all. But you were very positive.
Thank you. Well, I'm flattered.
And encourage. I mean, I just mean like in general, me thinking about it, and yeah, like, we shared a few PMs and stuff, and you were very encouraging and kind of like maybe pushed me over the edge to actually do it, which was cool.
Yeah, I think. Well, also props to, is it user Barrick, who I don't really know, is that that was the chief ideologist of the Poster podcast.
Yes, he was.
Hopefully maintaining strict ideological discipline as we go, making sure that only correct statements are made.
Yes.
One thing I said to you in one of those messages was like warning you that I don't have a lot of good stories. That's one of the reasons I look forward to hearing some of these other folks, is that some of them are just loaded with stories. You're loaded with stories.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. Well, thanks. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Like, I've had to like think about that because it is like everybody is different, and some people, like, when they don't have overt stories, like, oh, that reminds me of this thing that happened or whatever. I think they seem to compensate in other areas. I know that we hung out once in person and we talked.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like we need to get this out of the way as full disclosure.
So yeah. We're
yeah. Sort of like, how Clarence Thomas, when he's judging a case involving, his January 6th involved wife, should say, now look, in the interest of fairness, which is, the only reason I got into this business, I have to say, you've heard many things about my dog shit, trash drinking, fascist, lunatic wife, and I will not hear this case because I am an upstanding member of the judiciary. I was thinking about this earlier, and then I thought, if you could ask Clarence Thomas one question in the courtroom, what would you ask? The answer came to me pretty fast.
Yeah, I honestly, I'm so in the dark. I always get Clarence Thomas mixed up with Clarence Stroking It. Clarence, what the fuck is his name? So I'd probably ask him what it's like to stroke it to the east and stroke it to the west. But
well, it does come full circle, as he's a known sexual harasser. But yeah, you got to ask him what's our clearance, right?
Yeah. For sure. Oh man, I remember the only thing I know about Clarence Thomas is like, well, I know he's the Republican, like, Well, he's a judge now. I don't know how long
he's
he's been.
The farthest right justice on the Supreme Court, which is really saying something.
Right. Yeah. That's right. And I just remember watching some piece. It was some puff piece. I'm almost sure naturally. I don't know if it was on like 60 Minutes or something with my conservative mother. And it like went into his like history and his background and how he was like, I just remember it giving him all the credentials to say like, or the supposed credentials to give the whole conservative talking points about picking yourself up by your bootstraps because he was a poor black man and yada yada yada. It was like all it was about or whatever.
Yeah, I mean he was for sure. Is he qualified to be on the Supreme Court? No. Is he a poor black man who made something of himself? Yes, he is.
Yeah, I know. They always like tie. Yeah, everything is just kind of like lumped together when you're trying to that narrative, or whether it's like, okay, we can have many things that are separate and their own thing, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean, one of my pet peeves is hearing the Supreme Court majority referred to as just conservative, which is like not going nearly far enough. There are 4 theocrats on the Supreme Court, right? Actual like hard right, would like to see the country. And the interesting thing is we think of the like religious right in this country and it's evangelical Protestants, but these are Catholics. So you've got 4 theocrats, 2 people who could basically just be called conservative, and then the libs or whatever you want to call the remaining folks. But yeah, it's like it's not just a conservative majority, it's a theocratic plurality.
Mm-hmm.
Really, really loony, awful.
Yeah. It's.
Can you believe it? On our American Supreme Court, bad people.
Yeah, I know. It's hard to.
What does this country come to?
I know. It's some people like to suggest that the Christian right has lost a lot of power, but I think that's through a facade of pop culture and not necessarily any truth to it. I mean, when you talk about things like you just did, it makes it seem like they very much still have a lot of power.
Yes, I would disagree specifically with some of the posters on the metal board who I've seen say that.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of like where I'm pulling from that, but like that's just a microcosm of the way a lot of these people think, right? Like you see a few people say that, and
yeah, think is a strong word, but yes.
Yeah.
I decided that I'm mostly just lurking that board and shaking my head at people.
Yeah.
Getting involved, but
I get it.
But yeah, I saw some people make that point, and I don't know where it comes from, really.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, a lot of people were just like, "Dude, are you serious? Like what are you looking at, or what are you?" Because that's a bizarre statement. So
we met in Austin.
Oh yeah, back to that. You were playing. What fest was that?
I can't remember the name of it. They all come and go. It was 2018, I think.
Okay.
That sound right?
Yeah, and I know that the Eagles were playing in the playoffs because you.
That's right. Yeah, I made you. That's right. I made you. Someone who never has any reason to go to bars. I made you go to a bar with me, so I could watch.
You forced me to drink.
Eagles. Yeah, I think an Eagles playoff game. But yeah, we hung out a lot that day.
Yeah.
You bought me my first Topo Chico, I believe.
Oh, cool.
I later noticed them stocked up here.
Nice. Yeah, I think that was before Coca-Cola bought them, and the distribution got a lot wider. But yeah, nice.
But yeah, that was. I'm trying to think of any other time that I like planned to meet up with a VLVer who I didn't already know in person prior to that and like spend time with them.
Yeah. Wow. Cool. So, I'm glad you decided to do it. I had a good time. What I remember is talking a lot. I think we're two people that once you get going, we would really enjoy chatting. But we watched the game and then went somewhere else and then went somewhere else. And I was back then I was a pretty heavy drinker, so I probably drank many pints. And then
you did, but it didn't.
Yeah, I mean,
it didn't go off into incoherence or anything.
Yeah, that's not usually my deal. Once I get to, if I ever feel like I'm getting into incoherence or whatever, I'll just see you later, leave or something and go pass out by myself. But yeah, I think I did try to go to this. You weren't playing that night that we met up, were you? No. For whatever reason, I didn't see you guys. I don't know if you played the night before. This is with the band Rashomon, right? Is that how you say it? Rashomon.
I say Rashomon.
Okay.
I don't speak Japanese. I don't know how bad I'm butchering it.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Yeah. But our Japanese bandmate chose the name.
Yeah. Cool. I also remember, to the point of us chatting extensively, there was like, as I was drinking a lot and I had to pee a lot, I kept remember being like, I have to go to the bathroom, but we're like deep in the middle of, not even like deep in the sense of like philosophical deep, but just like hard chatting right now, and I have to go, but
like in the middle of a good movie.
Yeah. I just remember like holding it and just being like, all right, dude, sorry, I really got it. Like, I really gotta go. But yeah, that's the kind of intense conversation we were having, man.
It did skew. People familiar with us from the board may be frankly disappointed that there weren't more fart jokes and conversations about ambient music. Yeah, we did. We did talk about life.
Yeah.
A fair bit.
We could talk about ambient a little bit more today. I feel like my music appreciation kind of comes in waves and goes. And I've said it on this podcast before, but I've spent a lot of money on other habits and stuff. But now I'm back like fully into music or like buying records. And with that, I think comes, it's different than like jamming shit on Spotify or whatever. You kind of skip around or whatever. Buying records, I think you kind of like sit down with it, or like you get like really immersed in the one genre at a time or one or two, and you like buy a bunch and you listen to it or whatever. But anyways, the point is since then I've really gotten back into a lot of ambient, probably posted in the thread a lot more actively and stuff. So we can talk about that. I have like a, loose itinerary or whatever, but I want to backtrack a little bit. We'll just call that an intro of sorts. Everybody knows that we know each other in real life, or we did at one point. But what is
am I correct? Each episode has to be longer than the previous one. Is that the rule?
Yeah. So you're buckle in for 6 hours.
I just before we talked, I got about 90 minutes into the Richmond episode. I have a long way to go, but I feel like I'm at least not totally in the dark.
I did the Richmond one at my family's house with my mom and sister, and I was like, I gotta do this thing or whatever, and like they were just like, what the hell are you, like, what are you doing? Like after I was done, they were just like blown away. They're like, what in the world were you doing? And I was just like, I can't even explain. Like, I just talked to two guys for 5 hours about something that
just recounting stories that have already been written down in text. We're just it takes longer. That's awesome.
Yeah. We're verbalizing posts from a message board just because we can. But yeah, so I mean, this will be whatever. It is funny how long that episode was. But what does apraxia even mean? Is that an actual word? I sound like
it's an actual word. It means absolutely nothing to me now, other than that it has remained as a username for me, or like a login in various places. But just a word I saw that was like one of the words at the top of the page in a dictionary I saw once, and the meaning was something like an inability to make purposeful movements. And I was like, oh, that's like kind of deep. It kind of works on multiple levels. I was probably in my late teens or something. I would, if I had it to do all over again, I think I'd probably just be John.
Okay. Am I going to need to bleep that out, or are you cool with?
No, it's fine.
Okay.
I think probably a lot of people know my name anyway.
Yeah.
I was talking to my dad recently. I'm a junior, and it had never really occurred to me that so when you have a child and name it after you and you become a senior, like, is that how that works? You become senior and that becomes part of your name? Because it wasn't before.
Yeah, you weren't born a senior.
And yeah, and my dad was saying he can't even remember if junior is on my birth certificate, or how that works. If you just become a junior by default.
Yeah.
Unless you're blue bloody enough to be like the second.
That's funny. I was sort of, I guess you can't sort of be a junior. You either are or you're not. But I share first and last name with my dad, but our middle names are different. And I would ask him, I was like, why did what's with the different middle name? My middle name is my grandfather's first name, which is Holly, and his middle name was Alan. And I was like, what made you do that? And he had some.
I got my grandfather's, I think it's my great grandfather's first and last name as my middle names.
Okay, yeah.
Which my dad has also.
Yeah. Funny. They're those old timey names are funny. Holly, Wilbur, Monroe was my grandfather's name. Wilbur, that's one you don't see anymore. But I asked him anyways, and he was just like, oh, well, I thought about the junior thing, but I didn't want you to really end up like me or whatever. He had hard life or whatever. But then I was like, well, yeah. Then he always wanted me to be like Christian and stuff. So I'm like, well, if you didn't want me to be like you, I don't know. Big words, right?
Yeah. Pick one, Dad.
Yeah, pick one. All right, yeah.
So, neurological. Apraxia, just a dumb word that I saw at one point and got stuck with it, and yeah, I don't know if I'll ever be able to get away. But
it's not in the VLV world. That's you.
People can address me as John or shithead or whatever they want.
So, what year was it that you joined VLV, and how did you hear about it? Did you come?
I remember I was on Skylab. I think kind of toward the end of Skylab. Don't remember posting much, if at all. Bought a handful of records, maybe, and then I remember hearing about the birth of VLV. I think it was after Skylab was done, maybe on one of those small subboards like Cross My Heart, that I just would didn't spend any time on, but just looked at occasionally. And I very specifically remember going to VLV, and it must have been brand new. And I was like, well, there's nothing happening here. So I didn't go back to it for a year or two. And I want to say that was, I'm sure there's a historian with a better sense of time, but late 2001 or early 2002. And then I think I didn't actually start posting until maybe 2004.
It's still really early as far as timeline goes. I mean, the early stretches, I don't think I've met anybody that was, I mean, that's basically the impetus of VLV. So it's been a while. I forgot about Schmwack, right? Cross My Heart with a Knife. What the hell was going on in that place? What?
I remember it being pretty small. I don't know.
Screamo-oriented things.
Yeah, and I was not connected to any people really. I didn't know anybody on any of those boards. Just kind of.
Were you into any of the bands?
Yeah. But I feel like maybe a few years, based on other VLVers, maybe 2 or 3 years behind some other people in terms of age and sort of catching up with those bands.
Yeah.
And yeah, I will say it, just like I am open about having been a ska punk fan earlier on, yes, I did enjoy screamo. I don't listen to it at all now, but I don't disavow it, which would be hard to do with this throat piece that says SKREMO number 4 LYFE. I think all those words are spelled right.
Yeah. It's been pretty distracting talking to you with that. I'll have to maybe pop a screen cap of that in the thread. But yeah, were you? So I know you've been in a lot of bands. Were you in a band at that time? Did you like post about a band on VLV?
I was not. Well, I guess I was, but only just. And I really, compared to some people, I have not been in that many bands. But yeah, the first like real serious band I was ever in my life, I started in 2003, but it was not really VLV related at all, and that was aghast. And it ended up being the band started in the DC area, and then it ended up me being here and everybody else in Richmond. So I spent a fair bit of time. We were a Richmond-based band. I spent a fair bit of time in Richmond for like, over the next 8 years or whatever. And the music scene was great there at the time.
Yeah, that's why all my friends were there, and the reasons why I went.
Great unity in the punk scene between like the Crusties, who were my bandmates, and then the the No Way Records bands. And
did Aghast, was it like Power Violence?
No, it was like Crasher, Krusty.
Oh, okay. Thinking of something else. I think I'm like thinking of a VLV user that has the name Aghast and was in a grind band. That's neither here or there. Cool. So besides me, who other IRL posters do you know?
I was trying to think about this, and so obviously the DC, Maryland, Virginia region is heavily represented, but I would say based on how heavily represented it is, I actually don't know that many people or only know them as acquaintances. I guess the only good personal friend would be Paid the Price, who mostly is in the gear thread, I think, which I don't read. But we've been in a few bands. He's been in a lot. That's somebody who's been in a lot of bands.
How many is a lot of bands, would you say? Like, what's the cusp?
Enough that I years ago I would ask him how many bands he was in, and he couldn't even really like name them all on the spot.
Okay, yeah.
And that was 20 years into playing in bands.
Like you're starting to count on your second hand, and then doing like the phantom hand, where you're at 10 and you go 11, 12, 13.
Who else do I know in person? I recently had a very pleasant experience, like meeting you kind of out of the blue with user Gihib, if that's how you say it. Who was sorry if I'm fucking it up.
That sounds right. But I was saying Bear IC forever, so what do I know?
Oh yeah. He and his wife visited DC, and I just gave some recommendations of things to do, but I also said I'd be happy to meet up and hang out, and we spent an evening together, and it was very pleasant.
I'll do all the things that I recommended to you with you very closely.
Well, we went to dinner, and just a few doors down, there was ended up being a talk about the history of the neighborhood we were in a gallery that a friend of mine runs and has also been in bands, and the two of them were able to connect about music stuff.
Cool.
And it was a nice night. We just walked around, but in terms of people who aren't friends who I've met in person, it's hard. I think that's a fairly short list. Well, the two our two fallen soldiers I Kark, I've met a couple times.
Yeah. Just here, like at end of an year.
At end of an year, and Video Disease booked a show for one of my bands once.
Wow.
And like a decade ago, and was a perfectly lovely host.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I am struggling to think of who else I've met.
That's cool. Did you go through?
Whoever you are, I guess you didn't make much of an impression.
Yeah.
It's also you. I think you mentioned this in the last episode too. You start to feel like you know people who you've never met, especially since I'm one of those people that VLV is my social media. I've never had a social media account.
Yeah.
Of any kind. So that's what VLV is for me, basically.
Sure. Yeah. The recognition, just like the screen recognition, goes a long way. Yeah. There's a few people I feel that way about for sure. I guess, like, I don't know. I guess with every episode, I'm increasing my count. I guess, like, does do these count? Do these interviews count as meeting somebody? I'm gonna say yeah, but I'll also defer to somebody else if they want to say no.
It's sort of like purgatory. You're like half in, half out.
Yeah. It's fun. I feel like I could potentially know more about somebody doing this than if I were to, like, just, I don't know, meet them under normal, like what you would say would be just more normal circumstances. But
absolutely, you're gonna have the goods on everybody.
I know this is diabolical plan. Nobody knows.
Snip the good parts and don't publish them. And
yeah. Oh boy. All right. So, who are some VLV bands over the years that have really stuck out to you, good or bad? I mean, you know.
I feel like there were a lot of the screamo or post-hardcore era bands in the 2000s that just sort of missed me. I feel like there's a whole bunch of those that I maybe heard or maybe saw once, and they all run together. And that's not a commentary on any of those bands,
Sure.
Except to say they're totally forgettable. No. No, not at all, because I've been in totally forgettable bands. So, but yeah, when we were discussing this in a thread, somebody said, well, Yannick has posted on the board, so that's an easy one. If His Hero's Gone and Tragedy count, then that's a pretty easy one for me. That those
okay.
would be.
Is that I don't know. I've heard His Heroes Have Gone through an old roommate of mine that used to listen to him a lot, but I don't really know anything about the band. To see which member of the band is this person, Yannick.
He came in later as a guitarist.
Oh, okay.
I hope that is true and that I'm not getting that wrong.
That's fine. Yeah. We're full of facts on this program.
And then was part of the group that kind of morphed into Tragedy.
Mm-hmm. I don't think I ever heard Tragedy. I get Tragedy mixed up with no, maybe I don't get them mixed up with anybody. Definitely not Trap Them. Maybe I do though. God, no. Tragedy's good though. Like, I feel like every time
Tragedy
I hear that,
I don't know if there's been a contrarian turn to say that Tragedy is not good, but I still think Tragedy is great.
Okay.
If you want charging anthemic riffs with great vocals, you might as well start there.
Yeah, that's my shit. I love some anthemic stuff. I'm finding out.
But bands that I'd have to stop and think. I do like Expander. Would like
thank
to
you.
Catch you guys live sometime. So that ever works out.
Yeah.
I've played drums like 4 times in the last 2.5 years, and that was like a year ago. Like, my Rashomon has not gotten back on the horse after the pandemic, and the other band I was in that was just in the very early stages got totally derailed. So it's a weird feeling.
What the Rashomon just released something though. It was like an EP or a mini LP or something.
We did, but it was Recorded 3 years ago.
Okay, I did. Yeah, I was wondering.
Yeah, it just took forever.
Was there a long time between like the instruments and the vocals or something?
That was part of it. Yeah, there was.
Yeah.
It was like 7 months between the instruments and the vocals, and then another year before the art was submitted, and then a year and a half after that, I think it came out.
Just sitting on like vinyl queue wait list. Yeah. That shit has been brutal.
Yeah, it's my feeling is that something's got to give at some point. Like somebody's going to decide to just start building more machines.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
If I can use the technical term, right? If the demand is there, I don't feel like we can exist in the sort of bottleneck twilight zone forever.
Yeah. I'm kind of amazed it hasn't like it didn't happen immediately, because people are always so prone to fill those voids. But I guess when you're working with such an archaic industry and technology and logistics and shit, it's a little bit bigger challenge. But
I guess Blue Bayou was right. It is a dead format. Huh?
Oh yeah, wow. Blue Bayou cut. Who was that? That was bizarre.
Yeah, no idea. And I don't have any other thing to riff on Blue Bayou. I just remember them just saying that they were all digital because they had moved into the adult 21st century or whatever.
Okay, that's a funny thing to remember by that poster, because there was a lot of other. They were like coming after people's kids and or like fathering abilities and shit. It was weird.
But only in the metaverse, right?
Right. Yeah.
Only digital kids are real.
Yeah. Damn, man. I was thinking how I kind of want to start a family, but maybe I'll just go digital.
Yeah. That the off button is certainly a tempting piece of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, all the perks, none of the pesky annoyances and grievances.
You can also have like 13 blimp juniors.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You give them all your name, give them all your facial hair, your glasses.
Yeah.
Yeah. Be like a Aphex Twin video run amok.
Yeah. Man, that is appealing. Then I could force them to listen to music that I like, just like I don't want to do with real kids. And but I wouldn't.
I don't have kids.
Yeah.
And
so I'm going into a topic that you can speak at length on then.
Okay. About not having kids?
Yeah. Or about what children, yeah. Just children in general.
Yeah, I always assume for parents that's a fine line to walk between trying to mold a child, but also expose them to the things that you think are valuable.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I think
like gore grind or whatever.
Yeah. I'm a little too eager, I think. I think I would be like, I don't know if I'd have the willpower to like, I mean, I obviously wouldn't show them anything that's not appropriate, but like I would.
Obviously.
Yeah.
I know you.
Yeah.
Say no more.
And there's no chance that they could just stumble into it around the house.
Shirt on?
Huh? Sorry. Yeah, but I really would. I would just like really want them to be like me, be exactly like me and appreciate the good shit.
I think it would be tough to have a kid that you didn't connect with on some key levels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's kind of a gamble too. I feel like it's like.
Is that why people have more than one?
Yeah, they're like
this the beta version did not work out.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You wanna race sailboats and buy a lot of clothes.
Yeah. And no way in hell am I gonna like, cross the bridge
Actually,
of my child's
dad
interest.
my dad spent some time by the ocean growing up, and he says he entered these like dinky little boat races sometimes, and I think he has a third place trophy from one where there was only 3 entrants.
Nice. What? Got to rep that one on the mantle for sure.
Yeah, I have my well, I thought it was right here. I don't know where. I think it's in the other room. I have my 5th grade spelling bee champion trophy.
Oh wow!
Still very proud of that one.
What was do you remember the winning word?
Foxy.
Foxy.
Yeah.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah. Some of the kids were like, "Oh, that's so easy." Of course, I had to climb the mountain to get there. I don't remember what any of the other words were.
Yeah.
Ignominiously, I failed to repeat in 6th grade.
Whoa.
Because I spelled stimulus O-U-S.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, there was a loud murmur went through the crowd.
Ooh, yeah.
I was dethroned.
He had it. Oh. As soon as what it's like too to hear those murmurs, man, you just know right away. It's like, oh, it's grueling. And you wish for a split second you just take it back, but no.
I had never heard the word before, I don't think. I did my best.
Yeah. Do you watch Spelling Bees these days?
I don't. No.
I feel like this was like 5 or 6 years ago or something, but I feel like they were kind of like trendy. I don't know what to say, but like yeah, like for like adults on social media to be like, I'm watching just like it might be if you to like watch a dog show or something. Not that they're all trends, but like, people were all of a sudden taking interest in spelling bees.
I mean, those kids on those things, the worst kid on the national spelling bee would piss all over my trophy.
Yeah.
They're machines.
For sure. Grueling life. I was an okay speller, I feel like, but I was not a spelling champion. Like you.
That's okay. We can't all be spelling champions.
Yeah, right.
Don't go too hard on yourself.
Yeah. Well, if I only grew up in 2022, man, and this trophy, you just giving away trophy willy-nilly culture, I suppose I could call myself a spelling bee champion, but couldn't beat the system. What are some of your like earliest memories and like lore of VLV? So you've been around for a while. Did you ever partake or have any kind of interest in like some of the like legends of yesterday?
I don't think I played a role in any of the great threads of the 2000s.
Yeah.
I didn't know anybody on the board at the time. And kind of like I am now, I think I had more political opinions than musical ones. And so I think I was in a lot of the politics threads.
Mm-hmm. I think actually, I mean, we might be fast forwarding to the beef section a little bit prematurely here, but that's okay because
no, you can't. How can you prematurely get to beef?
Yeah. That's just the nature of what we're doing here. But I do think that
speaking of prematurely, I did some laundry earlier, and I have this concentrated detergent that's like you don't need to use a whole normal cup.
Yeah, which I think has been around for a long time, but I still put a whole cup in.
Right, but the directions on the back are 1 squeeze equals 1 load. I was like, oh, I feel seen.
Yeah, you're sold on that brand. What brand is this? Tide? You're a Tide guy forever now?
This is no 7th generation.
Okay.
One of the hippy dippy ones.
responsible consumerism. I like it.
I got away. I don't know if it was on my own or my partner is pretty sensitive to the chemically scented ones. And in retrospect, though, I grew up with them. They smell like shit, and I would never want to use them again.
Yeah. They're just egregiously fake smelling. Yeah, like mountain air or whatever. It's like, God damn, nobody would ever go.
I feel like this has come up at some point on the board, like colognes and perfumes. You just smell like chemicals.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the goal, but
I used to wear cologne.
I guess the thing is, like, if you want to smell like chemicals, man, what are you covering up?
Yeah. There should be no smells coming off your body, ideally, or maybe not. I won't say none, but
well, your kids in the metaverse can be totally scent neutral.
Yeah,
I think you can. I think there's a drop down for that. Right after the goatee.
Right before the NSBM collection.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I assume the last 3 hours of this talk will be dedicated to that.
Let's
make sure that we keep our powder dry.
Yeah, we're building up. Well, so I was gonna say that I feel like me and you probably had a contentious posting relationship for a while, because I was a knucklehead, and from like 2008, 2009, 2010, and I didn't really have any. Well, let's see. I was probably listening to Rush Limbaugh back in those days too, so I was kind of just parroting. Who was that other guy that would do that shit? Pete, I think was his name.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who didn't grow out of it? Right.
Yeah.
If you recall, people have checked up on him, and he was
like a mini Ben Shapiro or some shit.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, massive piece of shit. I wish him all the worst.
Cool.
He was trash on the board. Sounds like he's still trash now.
Yeah.
The Photoshop Pete was a great thread.
Mm-hmm.
A great thread. I don't know if that's been mentioned in any of the other episodes.
No, I don't think so. Tell me about this. So, was it from the original photo of him in the gold jacket, or wasn't there something like that?
It was a different one.
Okay.
Although those pictures were even better. But yeah, this was him, kind of, if I recall, sort of more of a metal pose, like screaming at the sky with like the Afro style hair. And I actually managed. To this day, I have zero Photoshop skills. I do not know how to use those tools. I keep telling myself I should learn exclusively to be able to make more dumb visual jokes, right? Why else would you learn Photoshop?
Yeah.
I somehow figured out using like maybe paint. I contributed one image to that thread, and he was being eaten by a shark that was jumping out of the water. That was my contribution to that thread, but that thread was really good.
Do you still have that photo image somewhere?
Highly unlikely.
Oh well, gotta ask.
That's what, 2 board wipes ago, I think, and I don't think it would have stuck around. But I do not put you in the same category as Pete, because Pete was like a true believer. You were, as you said, like a knucklehead, right? A bit of maybe an ignoramus, but like clearly there's a trajectory that Pete actually believed terrible things and was openly racist on the board, and he's stayed on that path. And I certainly I would say the first 8 years, or I don't remember when he left or was kicked off or whatever. He had a troll account called Mr. Black Folks at one point.
Oh God. See, I didn't know that he ever got. I mean, it could just be my hazy memory, or just the fact that I would jump in and make a dumb post and then jump out of the political threads and never paid too close attention. But I never picked up on like his like overtly racist stuff. I always, yeah.
I'm pretty sure I spent more time arguing with him in that first era of the board than I did with anyone else, and that probably is saying something.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because he was on the wrong side of pretty much everything.
Yeah. Yeah. That no, that makes sense. Yeah. I was like just kind of
I don't have any. There's nothing about your posting from that era that sticks out as like relentless. Maybe you were relentless at times, but like I remember Pete, and I remember arguing a lot with Pete, and that was before you joined. And I do remember your persona in that first iteration. And I'm sure we argued, but like unlike some other people, I don't have any memories of specifically arguing with you about any particular thing, although I'm sure we did.
Yeah. No, we did, and I think it was more just like me parroting something I heard on conservative AM radio or something, delivering pizza, and then like not really like you probably just being like, well, that's dumb, and me probably just being like, no, it's not, and then you just being like, well, yes, it is, and then me just being like, oh, well.
Oh, I'm sure I told you in stronger. I'm sure I told you in stronger terms than that.
Yeah, for sure. I'm paraphrasing, no doubt, but I just like you said, I don't think I intently believed anything. I was just kind of like getting my like mush brain full of because I didn't have like any political convictions. So when you're listening to these dramatic dudes, you know, I'm sure this is how a lot of people fall into that trap. You're listening to these guys that have these such strong convictions, and you know, they present it as researched and logical and all this shit. You're like, damn, like, okay, like, you know, it's very intoxicating, I guess. But yeah, I think
well, you got to play the field, right? Because otherwise the first two people you hear are going to sound like they're making all the sense in the world, because you have nothing to compare them against.
Oh yeah.
So you gotta it's funny, I was remembering just yesterday or the day before that there was I mean Rush Limbaugh has always been someone who was a terrible person, and you know, I always disagree. Like there was no era when I was like, oh, Rush is making some really great points.
Yeah.
Although if he hadn't been such a hack for the right, he could have been much better if he had you know, attacked the right like he did the left, because he could be funny. But yeah, there was one time I had a job where there was a lake nearby, and I'd just go eat my lunch like 5 minutes away in the car, sit at a lake, and you know, it's like noon. What else is on the radio? I actually went, I would occasionally tune into Rush just because there was nothing else.
Yeah.
And he could be funny, but
I think a lot of
he could also be dead, which he is.
Yeah,
and, we'd celebrate that, and yeah.
I think a large part of his audience was, not saying that you engaged in this kind of listening, especially if it was only occasionally, but I used to live next door to a lady who was my landlord, but she was a very like standard kind of like liberal lady, like a coexist bumper sticker, you know. She's like in her 60s, old Austin gal, and she would just come out of like her house some days and just like go off into some really steamy like rampage venting about like what Rush Limbaugh just said or whatever. And I got the idea that she like listened to him a lot just to like, you know, get mad at it. But
yeah, I mean,
I think that's when I first realized that his $400 million contracts are probably helped along by there's probably a large portion of that, which is people that are listening in that nature.
Yeah, I mean, one of the most influential Americans in my lifetime, easily, what he did with his radio show.
Yeah.
You know, he helped, you know, poison and scare and dumb down so many people in this country. And you know, obviously the Fox News angle has continued, mostly trying to scare older, whiter people, more vulnerable in some ways, feeling left behind by the world, or just being racist. I mean, I'm not going to give every old person the benefit of the doubt that, they're feeling adrift. No, they might be just feeling very racist.
Could be.
And Rush was certainly, a big racist, or he played one on the radio to make money. It's like Tucker Carlson. Who knows what he actually believes, but he's a white supremacist on the news. So
yeah,
that's all you really need to know.
Yeah.
One of my ideas that I'll never do to add to the long list is I think it would be fun to do a daily show where it's commentary on the rhetoric of every Tucker Carlson episode, right? Not necessarily arguing with all the politics, but the thing is, if you watch him for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, you can be like, oh, I see what he's doing. It's bait and switch. It's conflating things. It's confusing. It's, confusing the credulous viewer, right?
Yeah.
The rhetorical tricks he uses are super obvious if you're not wanting to be fed them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it would be, fun. Yeah, it would be fun. Yeah. Every day, just break down every episode, get a graphics person to work with me, put it up on YouTube, like every day by noon the next day, like here's how Tucker's doing what he's doing. And of course the show would be called Untucked. That's copyrighted. No one else can take it. If you're a graphic person and you want to do this and we want to quit our jobs,
I think you're onto something. That is a YouTube channel. That is Me Crimes can do graphics, probably really appropriately funny ones, given the context and his style.
Oh yeah, thumbs up to that little digital short, or what, I don't know what the correct terminology is, but that was impressive. And I would specifically say that I thought the soundtrack was good, and I love that he did all the sounds by himself, even though he said he was really unhappy with it, which anybody who's played music is unhappy with what they've played. I've been there on any recording that I've been in, but I appreciate the extra effort to DIY the soundtrack. That was very cool.
Yeah, I think so too. Props to him for that. And you're your own worst critic, obviously, so know how that goes. We have a caller, apparently. Hello.
I have to go. Is that all right?
Yeah.
You still have someone to talk to. That's good.
That's cool. Yeah, we'll just trade off. 503, are you there?
Yo, see you later.
Yo, see ya.
Oh,
really? This you taking off? This is Glue from VLV.
Oh, right. Good call and backed hard.
No,
what are you guys doing?
Teasing you a little bit, but
I keep forgetting. I was listening to the Richmond episode right before we started this, and I keep forgetting that the callers can't have any idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
all the stuff we said about Glue,
I know,
you'll hear it in a month or whatever. Solidly 60% good.
Yeah. He'll have to catch up.
Glue, you're in Boston, is that correct?
Yeah.
Whereabouts in Boston?
I'm in Medford, actually, which is technically not Boston. It's the suburbs.
Oh, okay. So I went to college in Maine, and a third of my school were mass holes, and everyone was from just outside of Boston. My first year roommate was from Medway. Method, right?
Yeah. Medway. That's a nice place.
I think I visited his family with him once. somehow, even though he was less than 3 hours away from home, it wasn't close enough, and he transferred to Tufts, and that was that.
That's in Medford.
Yeah, so there you go.
Bring it all back home.
That's right.
I don't know. I didn't even have anything to fucking talk about, but I keep forgetting to call these things. I was like, maybe I'll call and it'll be like cool, but it's probably just gonna ruin the episode. But
no, it's great.
I did want to see if you guys
together. Have we ever played a show together? I
don't know. I don't think so.
Okay. I feel like the chances that we've been at a show together at some point are probably pretty high, but
I think so. Yeah, I think I've seen a bunch of your bands. Were you in Coke Bust?
No, I was not.
Oh fuck, that's the other DC band. I saw Coke Bust. I think I saw Sick Fix. Were you in that one?
Nope. Chris Moore was the drummer in both those bands.
Fuck. Never mind. I've never been to any
earlier about User Paid the Price, who is a bandmate of mine. So we are doing a band-to-band thing here. But yeah, any DC band from that era, you've got 9 times out of 10, it was Chris playing drums.
Okay.
You were not in Brain Killer, were you?
No.
Okay.
But I love Brain Killer.
Yep. Very good band.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll probably cut this out. We'll probably cut this call out of the episode, but
we'll probably slow it down to quarter speed.
Yeah. Put a couple toilet samples on there. Yeah, I was telling Blimp, I a few days ago I was searching for online sound banks because I thought it would be real fun to try to add the Morning Zoo sounds live, and I didn't find anything that would be, because you really got to be able to like smash it quick, right? You can't be like, that would be lame. I gotta dial up the moo cow, or I gotta like go on YouTube and find Joe Biden saying, "Come on, man."
Glue has been evicted by the technological revolution.
Yeah, what happened?
Another disastrous consequence.
We lost him. It sounded like he did want to ask something, but then,
yeah,
hopefully
he'll call back.
Yeah,
I can say, "Oh, hey, everyone else should." Well, I could go post it, I guess. What's going on the board right now?
Yeah, let's take a break here. I was gonna say that we could I didn't know even if we did find a sound bank that we could just bonk and have the sounds. I don't know how it would come through on the recording unless my speaker picked it up. But
hopefully, really shitty and half-assed, which would be more funny.
Yeah. Oh, that would be ideal. But come back, dude. What was your question? LOL. Maybe he'll come back and ask that question.
Glue, very funny poster.
Yeah, I like Glue a lot.
Off the mark by calling you a literal Nazi. I will say that.
Yeah, I mean, so it's funny because it's like, I mean, that's just how things go. Like, there's disagreements in that realm, which kind of pits us together. But that's why I just don't even fuck with it anymore. But
what, Nazism? You gave it up?
No, yeah. I stopped completely. But no, just like
hung up your armband.
Yeah, just the conversation.
We have a caller on my end here.
Oh, who's that?
This is Bongo.
Bongo is a very beautiful gray cat that I'm seeing on screen right now.
Yeah. I found Bongo as a little kitten on the street in June.
Ah, well, that's nice. Good home. We have 2 strays that are like half outdoors, half indoor cats now. Feed them, take care of them, get them their shots and stuff. Well, I don't. I shouldn't be giving myself some credit, but I pet them and I give them love, which counts for something.
Yeah, Bongo is fully indoors now.
What was the transition like? Is it him, her, or
him? Although I Well, him in terms of biological sex, in terms of identity expression, I will not project. But I called him her for like a week before I flipped him over to check, and I was like, oh,
oh, whoops.
Those are definite balls. Those are not like what do we have here? That's like, yeah, I just didn't look for like a week. And because any 2-month-old kitten mules in a high-pitched way. Anyway, I made a disastrous gender assumption that I feel may have poisoned our relationship for good.
Oh no, you can get over
that. He's feisty.
Yeah, is that his
really loved to attack my feet for the first few months. Still loves to attack my feet, but not as much.
Yeah.
And does not like strangers. And this so I'm in a non-traditional living arrangement with my partner as of this year. We'd been living together for a long time, and she got burned out on DC, and had been looking for a few years. So she's a private English tutor and works with a lot of like professional level non-native English speakers. So a lot of folks like, World Bank embassy type folks in DC. And she had an idea to have a property out like 60-90 minutes from the city to do English language weekend retreats for professionals to go and just like casually work on their conversational English with other professionals. And it was a great idea, and to have a place outside the city. And she didn't find one, and then the pandemic hit, and there was no getting people together in a house for a weekend. But she really got sick of the city, and as of earlier this year has been living about an hour out in Maryland. So we're splitting our time because we had talked about it, and I work in the city, like super local to where I live, and it just would make no sense for me to live out there full time and commute into the city. So it feels kind of weird, but shout out to anybody else who has like a non-traditional. It's not a long distance relationship. I mean, it's just a car ride on any given day. And we were living together for like 13 or 14 years before that. But so we have a cat together who we've had for a long time named Vladimir, who lives out there now because he gets to go outside. And I was telling my partner the other day, like, I've never cheated on anyone, but having two cats in two different houses who, like, on any given night, you're like getting into bed with one of them and they have no idea that the other one exists. It's actually a very strange feeling.
Yeah. Oh man, little guilt and shame involved. That's funny.
Well, I was for a long time I did pet care for work, and so Vladimir was used to me smelling like a stable's worth of animals. So it's not weird for him to have one more on my pants that I'm bringing into his place.
Yeah. I thought okay. I was familiar with that. There's quite a few people in VLV that did that do that kind of line of work, right? Is there a thread for like pet care?
There's not many people who seem to have done it for a long time, but I bet there's a lot of people who did it at least a little bit.
Yeah. It seems like something you can pick up fairly quick. Like I have a friend actually. There's like apps and stuff for it now. It's like all through.
There is. Yeah, I got into it back in the dark ages.
Yeah, when
before all that. It was a common job for punks here because you could quit and go on tour and come back and just have a job again. And I got my first job with an agency through a punk friend who worked there and worked for the agency for a few months and then the following year, a friend and I started our own business. And then,
how did you get clients back in the dark ages? Just through like Craigslist and Facebook?
Well, it wasn't like pre-internet dark ages. We're talking like this was like 2006.
Right. So like,
no, we actually built a good looking website.
Oh, had the real deal. Okay.
Yeah. And that's, you'd get the occasional word of mouth client, but even back then it was heavily people searching for dog walkers in certain neighborhoods and finding you and sending inquiries through the website.
Okay. That's cool. It's crazy that worked as well as it did even back then, because you feel like Google, it just never stops learning, right? So that's 16 years ago. And today, like what they're able to do with like local searching, like when you search local shit, it's crazy. It's precise. Like you can find anything and you can find a distance and you can find whatever. But I guess it was working back then. Who knew?
Yeah. And I forget which one of the, mega pet care behemoths, Wag or Rover, like one of them.
Yeah.
A bunch of Saudi money. Like,
yeah.
Fuck off.
Yeah.
Like I understand that those apps have been good for some people, like, other gig economy apps have been good for other people. But, totally shitty companies. So yeah, I was lucky that I got into it before that, and we got our clients the old fashioned way, and our business was a collective. So we also, when somebody got hired, they came in as a partner. There were no employees, made all our decisions by consensus, and it could be difficult and annoying and take a long time, but there was about as little exploitation in a workplace as you can have, really.
Yeah.
So that was cool. And then eventually I actually wanted to work less than I was with the collective, and I'd split off to work independently, and I did that for a long time. And I just kept some of the clients I had, didn't have a website, wasn't doing business under a name, wasn't advertising. Dogs would move away or die. I'd pick up people occasionally, just word of mouth, or who would see me in the neighborhood, and it was sustainable that way. So I wasn't in competition with really anybody at that point. Yeah. And then earlier this year, I just hit a wall and got very sick of dog walking. After, 16 years, it was my full-time job.
Yeah. It's a long time, man.
Long time.
To do anything, or even joyous activities. It's like,
I know everyone's thinking it, and you're right. It's a lot of shit. It was a lot of shit. A lot of feces.
Do you sometimes think, my friends used to have this joke, and sometimes still do, but it's retroactive now that I've stopped drinking, but just we would laugh to think about all the beers that I drank in my life, what kind of pile it would look like, physical, like the cans. How many dump trucks would it fill, And I'm just doing that right now with the turds that you.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. How many times to New York and back, walking just on poop bags and scoop litter boxes.
Yeah.
I actually have that here. Let's follow me into the next room.
Okay.
No,
we're going on.
I knew when I started that I'd want to know what this pile looked like. And since I don't drink, I wasn't cluttering up my place with wine bottles or tequila bottles. So, the spare room is just 9-year-old bags of dog diarrhea. Maybe I should use more chemical scents now that I think about it.
Yeah, maybe some mountain spring air would do do some good around there.
You open the door, you get lightheaded, you're about to pass out, but the last thing you think of was, I really made a mark in this world. here I see my accomplishments before me.
Yeah. Ted would be proud, man.
Oh, because I went through what is it the power process? It's like building your own house by cutting down the logs, and you're right. The only that's my main knock on Ted's whole shtick is that his idea of a meaningful life is just like curiously similar to extremely traditional masculine hetero activities, right? It just so happens that his idea of what an ideal life is like Little House on the Prairie type shit.
Yeah. If everybody just lived that way, though, everybody can learn to like it.
Yeah. Well, we all live with our choices. He's living with his, and I'm living with my pile of dog shit in the next room.
We'll never know what Glue wanted to ask, or maybe that was the question. Maybe he wanted to just know if y'all played together, or did you ask that? No,
I asked that. Yeah, I didn't even really give him a chance to.
You scared him away.
Yeah.
So favorite threads, or
we
just
need some deja glue. Sorry, I had to get that
deja
in.
Glue.
Deja glue.
He did pop off a glue from VLV, so really that's about as much as you can ask from our glue call. That was good.
He played all the hits.
Yeah.
You should have said, "What's up, Nazi? It's Glue from VLV."
What's up, you fucking yeah? I would have accepted it. Do you have any favorite threads or just general uses for VLV?
That's a good question. I mean, my general uses, I'm serious when I say it's like my social media, like the sort of stuff that people get in their social media feeds.
Yeah.
Especially pop culture, like the death pool thread. I don't know who 70% of those people are.
Yeah.
Who are dying.
When you say social media, do you include like popular message boards like Reddit and stuff? Do you ever go on those places?
I was not including those in my terminology, but I would say I don't use Reddit. Not that I've never looked at it, but yeah, it's not a go-to space for me.
Okay.
And I don't know if that's dumb in that there's actually some valuable stuff. I'm sure there is valuable stuff. But I'm a media dinosaur. I stick to.
Me too, man. I stick to
news sites, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't have that. I lurk the metal board, and that's it.
Mm-hmm. There's some decent. I noticed that you Geff Resson. That guy is in
from Mephitic Corpse. Yeah, it would be.
Yeah.
It would be silly to say I know him, but I went to New York to see them when they came through. I don't know when that was. 6 months ago. I don't know. Months fly bad with recent blocks of time. Are gelatinous in my brain, but I sort of buttonholed him after the show just to say I love the band, but also because I had seen him in the ambient thread, and we chatted ambient music.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was going to bring up. He's pretty active in some of those non-metal threads, and I always appreciate that because I'm a big proponent of those threads on that board, because there ends up being a lot of people that know stuff about those kinds of music, and I don't know, it's cool. He just seemed like a cool person that had good taste in music, so
that is the sense I got as well.
Shouts out to that guy. But yeah, just between that board and VLV, I'm an archaic dude. I like the old format, and I like the sense that I was actually talking about this the other day, and I felt like I came to some sort of irony, because I'm very like self-conscious and like anxious at times, like socially, about like what people might think of me or like the things I say and shit, which is funny that I do this, but I kind of struggle with that also. But like, so it seems like I would prefer a big pool like Reddit, you know, like where you're anonymous and there's just thousands and thousands and thousands of users, to something where like the same 40 people are saying what you say every single day. But it's not the case. I tend to like the small community, online community. And
there's a history, you know, I've made my bed with VLV and I'm laying in it, and some days there's nothing going on the board, and I ask myself, why do I keep refreshing this page? Like, what do I need? What do I need to happen?
Mm-hmm.
But it's I'm not that I should clarify that I do look at the occasional Instagram page or Facebook page or whatever. I just don't have accounts.
Yeah, we all do. I look at Twitter links all the time, but I do not have an account. But because people post funny shit on it or whatever.
Yeah, but it's like, that's what I think a lot of people would be taking brain breaks, checking a bunch of different sites, and I just kind of have one or two, and that's why I go back to it, you know, as my go-to. And I do think, you know, without getting too sappy, a community has been built, right? We've all been on there a long time, and I don't need to belabor the point, because I think this comes up in every episode, and everybody gets, there's a swell of gentle string music, and a tear comes to the eye, and it's like, these all you assholes have been a part of my community for a long time, and Pete, I hope you're stuck in a storm drain somewhere, but everybody else I have more or less fond feelings for.
And it's gotten like more like concentrated too as the years go by and people fall by the wayside, so the sense of community is probably stronger than ever, at least that is the way I see it, because like I'm saying, there's definitely like 30 to 40 regular people, and as opposed to hundreds. So,
and I'm agnostic on opening registration. I don't have any strong feelings on it.
Yeah, I wonder what it would be like.
I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing. I would lean toward giving it a try for sure.
Mm-hmm. I wonder what it would be like.
What's the worst that could happen? Pete comes back. We get Mr. Black Folks too.
Yeah, dude, you better be careful. What would you do? There would be. Yeah, would it be even? I don't know. What's the best outcome for opening registration? That we get like a few people that want to talk music?
I look at it as like, okay, the tree of VLV is kind of old and tall, and it's got, relatively few branches kind of up at the top that have all been growing for a long time. Mm-hmm. This is just a beautiful dumbass metaphor. But this would be like, new branches. Like I could see some new connections being made, right?
Yeah.
Maybe not with an 18-year-old poster, but maybe somebody who's a little older and is into some of the bands that people on the board are into, and just the community spreading a little bit that way. But whatever, it doesn't really matter to me one way or another.
Yeah. At Thanksgiving, I was speaking to a person who I think is pretty active on like Reddit and stuff. Somehow like Austin subreddit came up. My friend brought it up and brought up how like toxic it is, because he just stares at it and gets mad on some days, because like I don't really know what goes on there. It's a mystery to me, but it just I don't know, some grievances that he has with it, right? But then I started talking about the two places where I hang out, which are the Metal Board and VLV, and this girl that was there was like listening in. She's a journalist, and I think she's like really active on like Reddit and stuff, and she was like very eagerly like wanting to know what message boards I was talking about, and like got out like a pen and paper to like write it down so she could like join. And I'm just like, I don't think you really want to. You can. I technically know how
you should do it. You should
a VLV account, but what would
you should pitch a magazine article of you writing about observing a totally like clueless outsider journalist coming onto the Revelation of Doom board.
I started to tell her the name of it, and I was like, oh God, what am I doing? Like, this is scary.
I would be curious what a complete outsider would make of landing in a space like that.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if they actually like get into some of the threads.
Yeah. I would, I feel the same way about VLV too. It would be a completely different thing, but it would be like bizarre though. Like open registration sounds like, I used to be a big proponent of it now, but then when I come to the like when shit gets real, like it does, like then like when it gets close, and I'm talking to somebody who's like eagerly wanting to join this weird private club that I'm in, and I'm thinking how I technically could. I think I've probably got more VLV user accounts on the board in the last few years than anybody else, which is like 3 or 4. But I can technically get Mr. Manager to create an account. But it's like if I did that, like what?
Hey, teacher's pet.
Yeah. I would have to. No, he probably hates doing it because
But he'd do it for you.
Yeah, but the code is so janky. It's probably a pain in the ass. But yeah, I don't know. And then I get scared because I'm like, this is a person that's in my life, in my friends group, or at least on the outskirts of it, that I'm going to see socially. And now I'm just opening the door to 30,000 posts, word up, that they can see. If they just click on blimp post history. I'm not too scared though, because I post so much that you would have to wade through a flood to get to anything truly embarrassing, probably. But also I would just be like, man, I don't know, like what?
Yeah, counterpoint or not.
Yeah,
it might be right on top.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, it could be right there. You'll never know. But my turnover rate is high, is what I'm saying, or it's just all the time. But
it's true.
Yeah, that would be.
To take the conversation in a slightly different direction, I think this came up. I believe Wiffle Baller made a thread about, have you ever just totally committed to something and what does it feel like?
Mm-hmm.
I think I said, I don't have an obsessive personality, and that's led to me having huge, as much as I love music, I would say that I'm not a fanatic on like your level, that I have all these gaps in, I know in the last episode it kind of came up with punk too. I have all sorts of gaps in classic music history that I shouldn't have, but I'm definitely not going to fill back in at this point. But like, I appreciate the maniacs who are just like listening to music constantly and then sharing it.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's how I found out about a lot of stuff, because I'm not maniacally, I like to try to keep up a little bit with, the new music I like. I really like buying new music.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the people who have the encyclopedic brains and who are just kind of all over the, omnivorous. Granted, you also, I think, just enjoy a lot more music than I do.
Yeah.
Right? In terms of genres and then number of artists within a genre.
Yeah. Do you like Italo disco? Because it's like all I've been listening to lately.
I can listen to it. I don't have strong feelings about it.
That's my latest obsession.
My
feelings are very strong.
I don't have a lot of stories. Here's a story. When I was in college, I was part of this very small campus, like sexual assault awareness, anti-sexual assault organization. And it involved, well, in terms of the campus part of it, we had pagers. There was a male pager and a female pager that somebody would carry at all times in case someone wanted to call and, anonymously talk to a student. Now, the problem was that the campus was so small that the chances that you sort of figure out who you were talking to were fairly high. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so I carried the pager sometimes, and I guess we do little awareness stuff on campus, but we also worked with the local professional sexual assault crisis center, and we did our hotline training with them, like the same as if you were doing hotline training to be on their hotline. We went through that training, and then they also went into classrooms in town to talk to younger kids about sexual harassment and older kids about sexual assault. And I was accompanying one of the staff from the crisis center to do one of these for younger kids, and middle elementary school, maybe pretty young. So this is where you're just talking about so when we say sex, it just means it's about your body or something, you're trying to relate. It's not a full sex ed course or whatever, but the point is, I don't know if I asked if any of the kids liked music or how it came up, but one kid said he liked disco. And I said, disco? Man, the only thing worse than sexual harassment is disco.
Holy shit.
And I fully, completely, partially regret saying that. And the kid was like, no, it's not.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And so yeah, present day me would go back and say, I don't so much regret making you the butt of my completely inappropriate joke, but I appreciate the role of certain strands of disco in music that I like now. So are we good?
Yeah. Sure, we're fine.
Also, you're not catcalling, are you?
No.
Right? You remember what Uncle John said after he was done abusing you in front of your classmates, potentially setting you up for a lifetime of the kind of shame that leads people to send mail bombs and write manifestos. Who knows?
Oh no, man. You're sending good stuff. Well, shit. Italo, man, I don't know. I just, they're obsessions, right? It's like the obsessive personality, I guess. It's how I get my kicks, and yeah, there's so much
cool.
good.
I'm definitely more I would be more simpatico with Italo disco than bluegrass and gospel. I'm completely out.
Yeah.
I got that's it doesn't hit any of the sweet spots for me. I can certainly appreciate aspects of it, but not my thing.
Yeah, that was a big hole I went down after country. I was like, how can
I'm really not a country person either.
Yeah. I mean, I was like, how could I get more hokey, more white than country? And I was like, bluegrass and gospel, I guess. But I think what does it for me with that music is the vocal melodies and the
harmonies.
The harmonies. Yeah, it's just such a pure sound, and it just hits that zone, and I like it. And I like a lot of simplicity in music. As I get older, I just appreciate. I mean, back when I was a kid, I used to really love technical death metal, just give me as much shit happening as you possibly can. Now I'm like, give me very little and just make it earwormy. And I think bluegrass and gospel has a lot of that. And then also ambient music does too. Ambient I was going to ask you this anyways, so we might as well just do it now. But I was going to ask you what you love about ambient music so much. What is it for you that that style of music is your jam?
The lame answer is that you can focus on other stuff while listening to it, right? I mean, I'm admittedly not the kind of person who just like puts on headphones and just closes my eyes and goes deep into the. I'm totally a multitasker.
No, I can't do that either.
Listening to music, and so, especially at home. I mean, sometimes I want to listen to really aggressive music late at night, but just my default for home listening is easier listening stuff. So I like that about it. It's also, I wouldn't say I don't use it to calm down. Like it's not a mood setter for me. Like I'm not my mood doesn't like swing very much one way or the other. Whereas some people choose music to set the mood, and I don't really do that. The same way that like people get out their aggression playing drums. That's not why I ever played drums. Mm-hmm. Like and if I ever did want to get out my aggression, like anyone who's seen me in person knows that the drums are in no danger. But yeah, I kind of have to think back, like why. So my I mean, this will be absolutely skip ahead if you think ambient music is boring, because I'm going to talk about it for a few minutes. We can maybe we'll timestamp the Nazi stuff.
Okay, yeah. 4 hours 15 minutes. I'm just guessing.
Right. 4:15 tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah.
I had a pretty limited musical palette up through about halfway through college. Like I said, ska punk, fairly accessible punk, hardcore. Wasn't even really into metal to speak of. And Wendy and Carl played at my school, and I went and I loved it. And when I was at their merch table afterwards, I was asking a friend who listened to more of that stuff. I was like, all right, so I want to buy, if I was buying one of these, and it was a CD, not a record, because I was probably still mostly buying CDs back then. I was. But I was like, okay, what's one that has like a lot of rhythm in it? Like I want one that's got like something going on, right? Whereas now I'm totally the opposite.
Yeah.
So yeah, I bought Portal on CD, and it was the only thing that I owned that sounded like that. And I would just like, doing homework, I just listened to it on repeat because it was the only thing that was like appropriate background. I mean, I get distracted with some other kinds of music or whatever. And I didn't even really, I wasn't like, oh, I like this now and I'm going to do a deep dive. That came like maybe a little, 2, 3, 4 years later. I feel like finding the Aquarius Records site and that really started to open the door to experimental and ambient and drone stuff. The kind of stuff that I still really like a lot now, 20 years later.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. I can't really explain what it is that I like about it. This is terrible. I mean, what else? This is what people listen for, right? It's like, oh, your insights into your favorite kind of music. I was like, I don't know. When you put it on the record player, it spins, and it's sort of fun to watch it spin.
And I like listening to it.
I guess I would say that if it doesn't sound totally inane, I have my personality goes to abstracts, and it is like an abstract music, and there's no the payoff is the mood that it sets over time.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The payoff isn't the riff. We have a caller. I'll just wrap up.
We'll get back to ambient music. No, don't worry. But maybe the caller has something.
Sure, great.
On an ambient. 206. Hello.
Yeah, I called in earlier and I didn't get to ask my question.
Oh, okay. What's your question?
Yeah, I just wanted to know, have you read the Unabomber Manifesto?
I have read, I anticipated that this question might come up tonight. And so I prepared myself for it. My answer is I've read enough of the Unabomber Manifesto. I definitely read a big chunk of it. Feel like I got the gist. Didn't feel like I was going to miss out on anything crucial if I didn't continue. And I absorbed what I needed to absorb from it.
What did you absorb from it?
What I absorbed from it, we actually, very early in our conversation tonight, we touched on this already, which of course you have no way of knowing.
Stop pointing out flaws of the program.
But yeah, what I take from it is that the useful, thoughtful ideas are too commingled with what I think are some really reactionary ideas, and sort of axes to grind that are not borne out in a thoughtful approach to the subject. And we have talked about this on the board, surely. If you are who I think you are, Brent Eystone.
Well, this is actually Little Ways.
Oh.
No, I'm joking.
No, you're not, because we know that area code.
Well, that's
206, you're barely half of the, what is it, the 415? I should know because I'm near Baltimore, but I don't even know.
Yeah, you lied. Was that a satisfactory answer, Wiffle Baller?
Yeah, I'm satisfied.
I'll go further, even though I'm retreading things that I'm sure I've already written on the board. But what else is this podcast for?
Yeah, that's
other than to retread. The key part to me, where I was like, okay, I feel like Ted's motives and my motives don't really cross paths, is that when he describes what an authentic life is that is not caught up in the superficial trappings of life in mechanistic consumeristic society, isn't it, correct me if I'm wrong, you've surely read more of it than I have. He talks about like building your own house and like feeding your own family by killing the animals yourself. And it's just like, it's a little bit too Little House on the Prairie, traditional masculine for me. Like surely that can't be the most authentic experience for everyone's life. Why would you project that on everyone?
I don't think that's what he's saying. I think that what you're maybe thinking of is he talked about what kind of activities would a person do if there was no surrogate activities, because Correct. There was no industrial technology or even post agricultural technology. And so what he's talking about is that if
Blimp left, by the way, straight up left the room.
Blimp did.
Blimp exited the chat physically.
Did you guys already end the podcast?
No, we're still going. You're in the thick of it.
Yeah, I mean, he's just saying that those are the things that you would have to do if you didn't have technology. You would have to build a house and you would have to be procuring food. And because you'd be having to do all those things, you wouldn't have time to be getting caught up in celebrity gossip and, all these really minute scientific pursuits and all these other things. That's the way I interpret it.
I think we're sort of saying the same thing from different angles, because I think that's still a value judgment, right? Clearly, he thinks that is preferable. And I would argue, who is he to say that that's preferable for everybody else? I think it's what he wants, and I think he's projecting it.
I mean, to say that from the other end, though, wouldn't it be fair to say that in a techno-industrial society, no one would have a choice you can't just go out and live a primitive lifestyle, even if you want to. It's just not possible because, techno-industrial society is global. You can't escape it, even just climate change. So it's kind of like,
what if you're
saying,
what if you're born without legs? And I'm not making a joke, right? I think there's a lot of assumptions about the physical assets required to live a life like that and to not become an immediate Darwinian casualty. And granted, we have created a whole other realms of Darwinian casualties. Don't get me wrong. We absolutely have done that, but I've always felt that was a major oversight of any primitivist argument, is just kind of like, well, there's a survival of the fittest implied in it. And I don't like the survival of the fittest with capitalism, but I also don't like it with primitivism.
Yeah, I totally get where you're coming from. And, what I would say is that we have evidence going back very, very, very long time
that no one had legs. No, I'm sorry.
Well, no, that even like Neanderthals would care for the sick and the elderly. I think that it's easy to say like, oh, if you're born without legs, you're basically doomed to die because you're unfit for survival. But I think that even primitive people have ethics to where they would say like, oh, my child is like not able to care for themselves, I'm gonna like work to care for them. We have evidence
being born without limbs lends you to being cared for. Being born with developing a cancer or something like that, which granted, of course, cancers are also a product of a lot of the shit we've created since then. Without, going on too long about it, I think that there are trade-offs, and I would, just as much as I would reject someone who would insist that celebrity gossip be a key part of our existence, I would argue that, having options for communicating with people over broad expanses of land and engaging in additional creative pursuits that were not available, collaborative pursuits that were not available to people at that time. If we're just spinning down the bathtub drain, ecologically speaking, I guess it doesn't really matter. And that might be your point, but I would say that I think there's some great value in what has come since that stage of human existence.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that the arts are just always worth pursuing, and I think it's really great that we get to live in a society where there's such an expansive amount of arts that people can pursue and other similar activities. But yeah, I don't know. I guess for me, it's sort of like, there's no choice in the matter. And I guess that's like where it really comes from. Maybe that's the way Ted felt as well. It's just that the fact that it's sort of like we have no choice in the matter. It's sort of like there's a gun to your head, like you're gonna live in this society, and if you have an issue with it, well, fuck you. That's kind of the way that. Well, but
there was no escape. There was no escape 5,000 years ago either.
Yeah, they definitely, people who lived primitively also definitely had, they were also victims of their circumstances.
Greg is looping a belt over his neck. Greg, don't do it.
Oh my God. Yeah, we don't have to keep going. If he's back in, he's gonna cut all this out anyways.
Yeah, I'm not joking here. I was reading up a little bit on Ted again because I'm sort of fuzzy on his. I never absorbed key pieces of his life, but he was clearly a damaged person, a person who was probably damaged organically, but also damaged by circumstance. And I do think that the things he expressed were clearly colored heavily by very concrete life experiences that he had and personal frustrations that I think he went in an extreme direction, but I would say that those are all part and parcel, right?
Yeah, I mean, I am an extreme person myself, and
hell yeah,
I think that's part of the appeal to me. Is it's just sort of like taking a lot of things and just sending them to their absolute logical end and seeing what comes out, and I really like that about it.
Like drone music, which is kind of what we were talking about before.
Yeah,
I'm not an extreme person. I can't hang. I tap out in the extremity contest.
Yeah, you know what? I tap out in the extremity contest too, if you know what I mean.
I don't.
I'm not going to expand on that.
Did you listen to the Richmond episode yet, Wiffle Baller?
I'm like, I want to say I'm like 45 minutes to an hour in, but
okay, so you're like 4% done.
Yeah, I got RSV and I've just been out of commission.
Yeah, all good. Well, no, I bring it up because actually there's a little somebody, I think John Rich Martin, he comes across a bike punk info shop sort of deal and gets the technological whatever that manifesto.
Oh yeah, he talks about getting the manifesto from a Crime Think distro at a show.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I remember getting maybe in the mail was something I mail ordered at one point. It was not one of their major pieces of propaganda, but I got if I recall, it was like a letterpressed postcard that had a drawing of a cute little bunny on one side, and then in gentle font on the other side was a quote from Ted Kaczynski, and I was like, I don't know, guys. I like a lot about what you have to say. I don't know. And I tapped out.
Yeah, that's kind of like how you got to treat Wiffle Baller's posting history. It's like
can I turn the tables? Can I ask you a question, Wiffle Baller?
I'll allow it.
Good. Who can you name 2 or 3 other people whose ideas you find really valuable?
Yeah.
Just let me
Nietzsche,
Google real quick.
Sorry, what was that, Flip?
No, I was making a joke that you were having to Google that, but
oh no, I've read a lot of Nietzsche, which obviously Ted is really heavily influenced by Nietzsche, so that's kind of goes hand in hand there. Jacques Ellul, obviously. But
you would love an SBM, dude. You should. You're listen to it.
I'm really not that into black metal. Like the closest I'll get to like black metal is like Wolves in the Throne Room. They're kind of a local band to me here, and but when I like go and look up like, oh, what are like the most popular black metal bands? Like I don't like any of them.
Wolves in the Throne Room. I don't know. That's the only pun I have.
So Ted, Nietzsche, any other shout outs?
Yeah, well, that's good. I just think it's I think it's healthy to absorb varied perspectives. I always, to me, it's always a red flag when anybody's like, you have to know what this one guy said, whether it's Jesus or Marx or Ted. And I don't know with you where the devotion ends and the cheekiness begins, but I
don't know either.
Yeah, that's okay.
I hope we never know.
That's a fair answer. That's a fair answer.
I took some philosophy courses in college, and my wife is actually like a philosophy major, so like I've been exposed to a lot of stuff, and I keep up with politics and all that shit. And yeah, I don't know. I definitely feel like out of all the different stuff I've read, this is like the one thing that jumped out to me personally on like a real personal level. Whereas most other stuff I read, it's like got this very like bourgeois feel to it. And I'm just like a little too white trash to accept any of that kind of stuff.
I certainly understand that angle. Because, yeah, a lot of other radical thought does involve exhortations to collective action and doing the collective action the right way. And I mean, I think that Ted went about his propaganda by deed very wrongly.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I understand not wanting to be, I think he's he cuts in the other way though. I get the sense he maybe shared your sentiment in that way, but that he went overboard in throwing all that out because it didn't work for him. But it's not clear that anything else did work for him.
Yeah, I think there's always a certain level of hypocrisy in turning to violence. I mean, I just don't really think it's justifiable for really anyone, but also...
Really? Are you a pacifist?
I mean, I don't know if I'd go so far as to call myself a pacifist, but like I could never commit violent acts. That's just not in my nature.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not. I was saying earlier in a different context. Yeah, I'm not built for committing violent acts. I would surely get the worst of it, but to me, a red line is a willingness to act in defense of others who are more vulnerable, and that's why I think pacifism is pretty gross.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that sort of remaining neutral in the face of attack is sort of just like giving an aggressor the go-ahead, pretty much. Like, obviously, like a relevant example with Russia and Ukraine right now. Like, I don't really think that the people who are shouting from the rooftops about how Ukraine is corrupt and Russia needs to free them, and that justifies killing tons of civilians. Like, that obviously that doesn't make any sense. And when you get into like where we're talking about war at the nation state level, it's a little bit different than personal violence, but obviously self-defense is human nature. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Human nature, that's another one to wade into.
Yeah, sort of a meaningless phrase.
Didn't you already get your own episode, man?
Yeah, I'll let you guys get back to it.
Okay,
I don't want to wake up my kid. You guys have fun.
All right, man. See you later.
All right. Thanks for calling.
All right, see you later. Yep.
I'm really glad you didn't bite down on that Russian-Ukraine thing, because I really was just going to slam the lid of my laptop.
Oh, yeah, no. I mean, what he said is, I feel the same way about that point he was making. So,
okay.
Yeah, we were not in disagreement.
Good. Because I don't even know enough about any of it to know whether or not
he was referencing the pro Russian. Oh, almost you have to say pro Putinist, because it's not even fair to. I hate lumping citizens in with their government. It sucks, whether it's here or anywhere else. Although, as a nominal democracy, we are more responsible than average Russian citizen is. But he was saying that there's the idea that if Ukraine were as corrupt as Putin says it is, that still wouldn't justify what the Russian government is doing.
Right.
And that is true. This is one of the hot topics of debate, certainly on the left, but I think also on the right too, is, you know, state sovereignty versus collective action to protect vulnerable people. And that's a tough one, because without any idea of sovereignty, you have the bullies overrunning everyone. But if you accept sovereign governments, then they're allowed to at least bully, you know, the people that they have domain over.
Yeah.
Whether that's the case of the Uyghur concentration camps in China is a big, obvious example, like massive, awful, you know, redolent of really dark times in the 20th century. What can be done about it without invading China?
I don't know.
No, that's not a rhetorical question, Blimp.
Yeah, you're not going to get an answer out of me from that one.
Anyway, yeah, what else on the topic of ambient music do we need to cover?
Well, yeah, I mean, I was just kind of.
It is still it's been some of my favorite kind of music for a long time, and I'll listen to it in the morning. I'll listen to it late at night. I'll listen to it driving, walking around, but the same way that I would listen to extreme metal in all those various contexts too, just depending on what I feel
That's
like.
really interesting. You bring up the mood thing, and because it's something I noticed recently. Well, I've like off and on in individuals, but like it really hit me just talking with somebody and realizing that their music choice is based on mood. And it's just a completely different in my experience. Like you're saying, I can listen. I don't have to be in a mood to listen to any of those genres you said, and also putting those genres on doesn't really affect my mood. I don't know. I don't know if I go that far. Actually, I've got to catch myself, because that's maybe a little bit more true, the inverse there. But one thing I like about ambient music, I think maybe the main thing is that it can be it can affect the atmosphere of a setting, of whatever setting you're in, without being like audibly intrusive or like interrupting physical sound, the actual sound. But it can be very rich as far as I can just, it's like a very imaginative music. Like I can put on music. Well, for example, I was camping last weekend, and it's like 11 p.m. and me and two other friends were around a fire, and I put on music for 9 postcards, and it didn't really like inject itself into our like conversation. Like our conversation wasn't interrupted by like, you know, a heavy metal riff or whatever. But at the same time, it really, really, really enhanced the atmosphere. Like it was just very, very like rich background, you know.
I think that's a good way to put it. Rich background. I mean, for me, I love minimalism. I love minimalist repetition, and that can be rhythmic or it can be, you know, abstract, beatless. But I definitely like the cumulative effect of repetitious music, and I think I'm also drawn to some minimalist visual artwork as well. But yeah, I mean, I one of the key moments in my little musical journey was definitely hearing Steve Reich for the first time in college, and I would consider him one of my favorite artists, and super influential in basically anybody doing anything minimalist that is not just drone. I would say you can that his echoes are in a lot of music in the last 50 years or 60 years or whatever it's been. And funny story, I saw him perform once with his ensemble. I think I was like 20 maybe, or like early 20s, I went to see him, and it's like not loud music, right? So my first couple shows I ever went to, I have fairly like my pain threshold for loud music is low, which is good because it forced me to not be a cool guy and like wear earplugs most of my life. So fortunately, I feel like I have most of my hearing at this point, because it hurts. Even moderately loud music hurts my ears. But Steve Reich, not loud music, right?
Right.
So no earplugs. That was the beginning of my tinnitus. My ears were ringing a little bit after that performance, and I swear it never went away after that.
Damn.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that's that's a little backwards.
Yeah. I also think I passed him in the lobby on the way out and tried to say like, oh, that was great. And he just looked tired and not interested, which fair enough.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, how long ago was this? He's an old man.
This was like, this would have been circa 2000, maybe.
Right.
So yeah, he wasn't as old and withered as he is now.
Yeah. 60s though. So
he put out, did you see there's, I think, 2 new recordings recently?
No, we were talking, I pulled up his discography here, and
he just had 2 new recordings come out this year, one of which I bought, the other one I didn't get yet. It's a little more active than some of his classic stuff, but it's still good.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think
Reich Richter, actually, I think it's not the performance that's recorded on the release, but I went with my friend, I don't think he posts anymore, but User Fabrica on the board.
Yeah.
We went to see what I think was the debut performance of that piece at the Shed in New York with the visuals as well. And that was cool. That's a good one.
That's
worth picking up. I forget what the other pieces on the other record are called. That one is, I feel like, a little more active, maybe a little more posy than some of his classic stuff, but still identifiable and enjoyable.
Yeah, I don't have that extensive knowledge of Reich. I was looking through the Discogs to see which albums I'm familiar with, if any. But if you want to give me or any listeners,
music for 18 musicians is the all-timer.
Okay,
that's I think the magnum opus of the classic minimalist style. He started with some early tape pieces that were groundbreaking as well, where he'd take a snippet of like a field recording, like a snippet of a street recorded conversation, and then start it playing on like 12 tape decks at once and just let it go out of phase with itself over time. So he, early in tape music, and then, but yeah, definitely
cool.
Music for 18 musicians, and Piano Phase was the first one I heard, and I still think is great.
I really like Piano. I mean, is it a piano album?
It's a duo piano piece.
Okay.
It's not album length. I want to say it's maybe 20 minutes long or something like that. And it's kind of staccato. It's very rhythmic, but it's, repetitive. So what happens in the piece is one pianist every so often speeds up just a little bit to go out of phase. They're playing in the same rhythm, then one pianist will speed up a little bit to go out of phase and then lock back into phase with the same pattern, but now it's like lined up different with the second piano.
So right about here is when I had that Steve Reich piece that he's talking about queued up and edited in all nice with a fade underneath our voices and then fading back into the conversation. It was really cool. And YouTube and Spotify, I think, blocked it for copyright, which is I wasn't expecting. Usually whenever it scans or detects a song that's copyright, it tells me, and it still says like, still can be viewed or used or whatever. But for whatever reason, Steve Reich is on lockdown, and that shit is just straight up blocked. So I had to re-edit, and I will now feature a tune from a project, I guess you'd call it, called Mountain Miner. The album is Osawa Tome. This was actually just released by other VLV member Fileco on his Great and Moss label, which is one of the best ambient electronic labels around, and certainly proud to have it be a VLV related label. And I know John really likes this album, so here we go. Is there anything in his discography that's, from my posting history,
racist?
that I really love the racist shit. So
actually, he has a piece. He is Jewish. I think he's actually fairly conservative Jewish. There's a piece called "Different Trains" that involves some, like pre-recorded train sounds along with original music, and he wrote it inspired by thinking about, as a Jewish child in New York in the 40s, the trains he was riding on versus the trains the Jews were riding on in Europe at that time. Mm-hmm. So pretty heavy stuff.
Damn, yeah. That is. Yeah,
he's anti what was done.
Okay. All right, fair enough. Fair enough. I can see that viewpoint.
I'll dig up. I'll think. I love Music for 18 Musicians so much that it's hard to recommend a bunch of others.
That's cool. I'll definitely start there. I got
I have his works. It's a 10 CD box set that I've had forever. That honestly I haven't pulled out in a long time, but it's pretty much all hits. It's a very cool thing to have.
Tight.
Are you a CD guy at all?
No, but it's not really like, I just have to take the plunge. Like, I have to get maybe 50 CD, or not even 50. We'll say 20 CDs that I think are really cool. And then all of a sudden I will probably think like, okay, like CDs, I have a small CD collection. Like I can buy CDs now and add to it. But it's just the fact that I don't have any, so I don't value their existence. And at one point I had like 300 or 400 CDs when I was a kid, when I was like, teenager. And I really wish I had them all, but I made the decision that I'm sure many of us do when we're young, to like put them in one of those giant flipping binders or whatever. And
Oh yeah,
they just got destroyed, and so
I never fell into that trap. I always kept mine together. I didn't have. I mean, that was my first. When I started buying music for myself, that ended up being the main format, and I owned a few records when I was younger, but I'm just very utilitarian, and to me, CDs were very utilitarian, and
yeah,
you take them with you anywhere, listen to them anywhere.
Yeah.
And I still love CDs.
Yeah. No,
but my regret is the opposite way, is that like I missed out on buying some things on vinyl that like would have been wise purchases. In retrospect. And then at a certain point I was like, I'm still utilitarian, but like CDs are kind of boring and records have more value, and I'm gonna make the switch.
Yeah.
But I still buy the occasional CD.
Yeah, I wish I had my CDs. I just have like this scar now that's like kind of prevented me from getting back into buying CDs. Is like losing all those CDs. It just didn't set well with me. So now I have this like block or whatever. But yeah, if there's a CD I could get, if I could get the record, and also I'd rather have the record, but that's a problem now because record prices are at an all-time high, and so I'm buying high on most of my music collection now. But I think that's still fine because record prices, unlike a lot of other investments, just never seem like. When was the last time they were down? Like, have they ever been down? In like the last 15-20 years, I just feel like they just go up and up and up and up.
Yeah. Have you noticed? I feel like if you track your Discogs collection value, I feel like actually this past year is the first time I've noticed it take a little hit.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh. I never.
Very, very small.
Okay.
But definitely a little reversal. If if all other things being equal, that if I'm still kind of buying and selling at the same rate I was, right. I feel like inflation has hurt.
Finally caught up.
Yeah, but I don't think it's going to be a reversal. I think like what you're saying, it's going to keep going up. I mostly buy stuff that's CD only for CDs.
Yeah. I wish I knew more. Like I would feel better or like more convinced to purchase like CD only releases, I guess is a for sure. That would be cool.
Honestly, there seems to be a lot of them in metal still.
Yeah. That's true. Metal, man, I've metal's taken such a back seat to my like deviation this year. I've gone so hard on the country, bluegrass, folk, and now like electronic music and ambient and or whatever. It's like once you get out of the stream of new metal releases, it feels so daunting to get back in because there's just so much.
Yeah, that's why I just kind of dabble and snipe the occasional.
Yeah.
I don't even try to keep. I'm sure there's stuff coming out every day that I would enjoy, but it's okay. I'm resigned to. I mean, it's the same with ambient and experimental music, which is the only thing that I actually kind of try to keep up with.
Yeah.
And there's lots of good punk. I don't listen to much punk, and I haven't in a long time, but there's good punk recordings coming out all the time, and I just don't even try to keep up.
Yeah. The best of lists are usually pretty helpful because you can kind of see what gets mentioned multiple times, and then
and every year I say I'm going to do one of those, and every year I'm just not motivated and organized to do it.
I start keeping a list of things at the beginning of the year, and then 6 months go by and I realize that I haven't added a single thing to it, and then it just becomes
I tried that for the first time, I think 2 years ago. I created a spreadsheet of all the music that I bought, and I made it about 4 months and then fell off.
Yeah. One thing about ambient music that I really like is the way it makes me I like shit that sounds like it could be a soundtrack to an RPG, like an old RPG, like things that make me feel like I'm I'm living a simulation or something, or
That's
that.
because it's totally not that for me, because I was never a gamer. I was never an RPG person. I'm not a sci-fi person.
Yeah.
Not that I'm anti all those things, but like,
yeah.
They never hit or stuck for me.
Yeah.
And so that association of a lot of electronic music or metal music with that kind of gaming background, I don't have that. So that's not it for me. I don't know what's going on in my brain instead.
yeah. And it doesn't have to have like overt gaming sensibilities, really. It's kind of just the way my brain perceives it, like a lot of the stuff that makes me feel like that is the Japanese ambient, because that stuff is very, very nostalgic sounding to me. And like Hiroshi Yoshimura and Hosono, his Watering a Flower piece that was for whatever Japanese department store or whatever. It just makes me feel like life isn't real, but in like a happy way or something. I don't know. Hard to describe. But
yeah, to me, that's like Hiroshi Yoshimura is like on the acceptable end of the sentimental spectrum for me. I've definitely gotten away from the more sentimental or like cinematic sounding stuff.
Yeah.
That does less for me, because I feel like there's a saccharine element in it that is not what I want in that kind of music.
And I think that's the element that I do latch on to that makes me think of like a cute RPG video game or some shit. I think that was a good word there.
Yeah, it's I guess I don't want narrative, or I don't want to feel like I'm being herded into a into a narrative pen, right? Go this way, then go this way, then go this way. It's one thing to have a themed release and to have an ambient recording that's broken up into like smaller pieces, but I don't want to be taken anywhere. I guess I don't want to be transported in that sense. That's not what I'm looking for in that music. What I am looking for, clearly, I have no words for.
But it's not that.
But it's not that.
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah,
no, I'm highly motivated in my life by the things that I don't like and that I don't want.
I mean, sometimes they're easier to identify,
Sure.
It's that kind of made me realize, talking about that Watering a Flower, which was a cassette release for, again, a department store that I can't think of the name, but also I have a Yoshimura LP that was released in conjunction with a fragrance. I think it was a perfume.
You just posted it, right?
Air. Yeah.
Or Air.
Air. Yeah. And I know he was involved in a lot of other corporate or like commercial commission of his sound, and it got me thinking, like, was that kind of unique to Japan's ambient scene? Like, I can't, or are there other examples of like ambient musicians in the 70s and 80s getting like commercial work like that?
You're testing the limits of my knowledge.
I
can't think of another scene that would have had that happening, but hopefully there's somebody listening who has more to say about it. And
if you do, please post in the thread, because it kind of just dawned on me that some of those Japanese albums that I do have like were commercial works, commissions or whatever, and I can't think of any like American ambient artist or like whatever East European or anything like that that's the same. But that's a really killer record. But yeah, also very kind of like pensive is a word I use a lot when I'm
I mean, this is really stretching the point you're making, but like Xenakis's connection with architecture, right? The idea of pieces being meant to be played in specific spaces with like specific loudspeaker orientations and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's not commercial in that same way. It's funny. It's like, oh, what did Hiroshi Yoshimura make people feel at that time? Well, the companies wanted them to feel like loose and happy to open their wallets, I guess. Buy clothes or perfume, or wasn't it? Because isn't that one that you got? Wasn't it perfumed? Does yours smell?
Yeah, it has a smell to it for sure.
Good, bad.
It just smelled kind of like stale and old, but in like a
so great,
a nice way, like an old book or something. It's like it is interesting like that.
That would be great if that was the original fragrance.
Yeah.
Stale and
yeah.
Stale and Old by Galvin Flein. Yeah.
but in a good way. Yeah, I would wear old book smell.
Reminds you of your grandparent.
Yeah. It
was comforting like a grandparent who did not abuse you, I guess.
Yeah. I'm also a sucker for shit like Grandma's Cottage and stuff. That whole comfy synth, because that is like straight up RPG soundtrack music, you know.
Right, and I can dip a toe in, and that's about as far as I go with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Friendly Moon stuff has a Yoshimura vibe to it.
Yeah, that was cool. I wanted to put that out, but I think that Phantom Lure label did.
They did, and I bought it, and I don't know if anybody else did.
I think I was waiting for it to show up in the US or something, but I don't think I ever bought it. I need to check. I'm getting to the point now where I literally can't remember if I bought an album or not. So I'm painstakingly entering everything in the Discogs, but that's taking for fucking ever. Hey, Glue made a post. I wonder if he didn't really have a question. He was just going to ask about Chat Pile or something. Do you have anything to say about Chat Pile? Have you listened to it?
I did. I've listened to that album once, just kind of like a band that like I did not know they existed. I might still not know they exist had it not been for that thread. Because I'm not a rock guy. Not meaning that I don't like any, but I'm rarely in the mood for rock. Just rock, be it like noise rock or indie rock or whatever. Again, I don't hate it all, but like I would never check out a band if somebody was like, "Oh, there's a noise rock band you should check out," and I'd be like, "Maybe, we'll see about that." But yeah, I thought it was on the good side of decent.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. That's all I got.
People love noise rock. I'm trying to like figure out what it is that like Daughters got so big and so like touted there for a while as like, I don't know if there's like this just void of like, and then when they like whatever, the guy got exposed as an abuser or whatever, so who knows what's going on with that band. But then so outlook not so good for their existence or whatever. I don't know if they officially broke up, but then all of a sudden here comes another noise rock band and it's like album of the year. It's like, I mean, I think it's like pretty good, but like I just feel like there's like this aggressive urge to like just really need a noise rock band to love,
Yeah, not for me. I'm not I'm not steeped in noise rock bands.
Yeah, I just mean generally speaking.
If I want to listen to something like that, it's going to be like Skullflower, like repetitive, like very repetitive, no vocals or minimal vocals. Although I'm not even really in the mood for that too often either. But yeah, that's all I got. Sorry, Glue. This is super depressing. I feel like I do feel like that the lyrics for the Y song are very memeable. Like I can definitely see riffing and making jokes off the lyrics in that song. Whether it's aside, trust that they're being sincere and whatever.
Yeah. Did you hear the Seinfeld mashup?
No.
Oh.
I will not bore the readers, the listeners who are still with us by going and doing that live right now. But I'll
no. Yeah, go. It's pretty good. It is actually a wiffle baller piece. Our own wiffle baller.
Oh, I stopped. I think the first week that thread was hot, I checked in, and then I have not been back.
Okay, yeah. Well, that was the reason why you saw it on the first page for the last couple weeks or so, because that dropped, and it is a hoot for sure.
I love a good hoot.
Yeah, I know you do. Has the punk or DIY world ever scared you, harmed you, damaged you? Is there any, or is it been mostly a happy and fulfilling world for you?
I have been very fortunate in my life in a lot of regards. I have not really hit any kinds of the sort of speed bumps that scar people and damage people. And I try to be very aware and open about how fortunate that makes me.
Mm-hmm.
From my upbringing through young adulthood to whatever old piece of shit I am now, ready to be thrown out on the chat pile. I would, that the band I was talking about earlier, Aghast, was that the culture of self-destructive and disassociative behaviors that I have never engaged in. I would critique that as not at all rebellious. I think that's a misstep among a lot of punks. Again, it didn't, other than being super embarrassed seeing a bandmate wake up blacked out in the middle of the night and piss in the corner of someone's house, here's a good story. Or that I can't believe this wasn't the first thing I thought of, and I'm not going to name names here because he's a friend, but the bandmate who woke up blacked out and pissed on my head.
Wow. Golly.
Yeah, fortunately I had just laid down and I was awake, so I jolted,
mitigated the damage.
It was the goldenness was not entirely of a shower variety, fortunately.
Yeah.
But and I understand for a lot of people it's self-medication, coping mechanisms or whatever, but I've long felt that the idea of substance use and abuse as rebellion is just way off base. To me, that's status quo behavior. That's
yeah.
Go into any douchey bar in the country, and it's people who you think you have nothing in common with doing the same
right
thing.
Yeah.
And this is not, to be clear, and especially I appreciate how open you've been talking about your own experience. This is not a critique of I'm not dumping on alcoholics here.
Yeah, no.
Right? Because I know them and I've been in bands with them, and I see how crippling that can be and how it can be an underlying factor to so many other things.
Sure.
But that sort of, I'm gonna get wasted because fuck the world.
Yeah. No, okay. I see a lot of.
All right.
Yeah. You show them.
That's my first thought, is just being in the punk world and seeing a lot of that and feeling like it was wasted energy.
Yeah.
And even though I'm lifelong teetotaler, but I'm not it's not a big thing. It's I don't care that other people aren't.
Yeah.
And I never really identified as straight edge. But no, I think, really the punk and DIY ethos made a big impact on me and stuck with me, even if the music scene itself isn't as important to me as it was. I don't know. Where were you trying to take me? What do you think when you think of the punk DIY scene and its pitfalls and damaging?
Yeah, like it could have just be something like, I mean, it could be philosophical, like you're getting, which I definitely appreciate, and it's good insight. But it could also just be something stupid, like you were at a show and you got hit in the head with a skateboard or something.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, I never. Here's the okay. It's story time.
All right, gather around, kids.
Little story. I went to this may be the only injury I've ever suffered at a show. When I was in college, I went to see Primus. And during the opening band,
I said punk and DIY world, dude.
Oh, this is all I got, man. I don't think I ever got injured at a punk show because I know enough about my puny little body that I can't just throw myself into the maelstrom and expect to come out.
Yeah. I'm teasing,
yeah.
Man. What's Primus?
Yeah, but yeah, I used to like Primus a lot, and I think plenty of Primus still holds up, even if I don't need to listen to it with any sort of regularity. But
huge reveal here. Huge reveal.
Yeah. I got into I got into Primus in high school and definitely have some nostalgic feelings for. I have also not kept up with the discography. I listened to a recent thing they released and it was bad.
I feel like if I pulled up,
there's probably listeners that would be like, "Oh yeah, like every other fucking thing they've done." But really cool. Herb, great drummer. Definitely at least picked up some tips and tricks from listening to him on the drums. There's not a lot of drummers that I would say directly influenced me, but he had that mix of being heavy and funky. Yeah.
No, heavy, funky.
But yeah, so during the opening band, when I went to see Primus, somebody got pushed into me and my fingers just kind of got jammed back into like a sort of a fist position. And I ended up getting a little hairline break in one of my fingers. That opening band, Limp Bizkit.
No way.
Yeah.
Damn, dude. Cutting edge.
Yep. Yeah.
What did you think of what were they even like on people's radar then? Or
they were just getting
there.
They came to my college radio station and did an interview, and I was like briefly interested in that band, I would say. And I was not interviewing them, but I was like there when they came in. But then they just went in the booth and did their interview, and I don't think I ever even listened to the interview. But so that's my every one of these episodes has to have a Limp Bizkit story. That's my Limp Bizkit story.
All right.
The little bump on my right pinky finger.
Damn. People, when you made the fist and with the fingers pinned back, it made me think of something that this bully used to do in school. He would do that with my pinky. He would like grab my arm and pin back the pinky and kind of push up, like pin it all the way back, but push up on the nail bed to where it would just like really put pressure on that last knuckle. And like kind of like yeah, dude, it sucked. I always thought I was just gonna like snap. Thankfully it didn't, but it was just kind of like some bully, like submissive thing, like I'm gonna do it. Yeah.
It's brutal. Yeah. Despite the fact that based on my scrawny build, would definitely have been a bully could have had their way with me if they wanted to. There was only ever one guy in school who like kind of occasionally bullied me. And he was actually shorter than me. And it didn't work. I mean, it was not very effective bullying, but yeah, man, people who had to deal with actually being like physically threatened on a regular basis growing up, that's awful. And I know it happened to so many people, and that's why they found things like punk. It's not why I found punk, but
I think I was because
that's how you found Christian spin kick metal.
Yeah, for sure. I think if you're a small person, then you kind of you're off the radar maybe, but
I think I wasn't vulnerable in the sense that I wasn't isolated.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I was.
That's why.
I don't. It was like maybe the friends I was trying to make or what, but I was also like tall. I was kind of like a big kid, but I was soft, you know.
Yeah.
They could sniff that out. I wasn't imposing in any way, I guess. I want to talk about the Voyager Golden record. Did you started a thread about
yeah,
that?
That was one of my complete flops.
Nobody posted it.
Yeah, I looked briefly at my posting history.
Yeah.
And I saw that one that got less engagement than Warren Harding's dick. And I still haven't even bought one of those, even though it's cool, and it's actually like musically, it's at least one side of it is it's like good sort of music, concrete, ambient, like it's pretty cool. Plus the concept is just cool, but I still don't own one.
Yeah, I was looking at I did kind of laugh that Johnny Be Good is on it, because just, I mean, come on, the idea of an alien building a phonograph to play this gold record and then Johnny Be Good comes on. But yeah, I thought it was.
They should have at least tried to dub it into, Rundle Smurf 247 Be Good. Like maybe there's a chance that you'll get that guy.
Yeah. I didn't really recognize a lot of it. I mean, obviously a lot of it is world music, which I don't know a whole lot about, but
the point is that it's like collaged, and there's like natural sounds. I think there's like animal sounds and stuff.
I went to some SoundCloud and it was like like elephant and like all this shit, and I was like, man, this would be really overwhelming for an alien to listen to, because like they just like really throw everything at you, the whole swath. And I was like, could you actually get a good representation of what's going on down here through this? And I don't know. I mean, I think it's a good effort, but I'm not sure.
We'd have to update it for accuracy. I think it would just be like one episode of TMZ on each side.
Yeah, with like a Trump speech in there somewhere, maybe, or
with like bad bastardized dubstep in the background.
You started like an all-encompassing religion sucks thread.
Yes, I did. I think that was in reaction to I don't know, it was in reaction to somebody saying something, and I'm
aren't we all?
I will take this conversation places, but I have long hated religion and felt like it's overwhelmingly negative, not without any positive qualities, but that if you don't have a base, like I would say you can draw a direct line from the idea of religious faith to sort of fake news.
Mm-hmm.
Right, the idea that it went from like, well, I can have a set of beliefs that works for me that is not necessarily tethered to provable concepts, because that's my anchor or my North Star or whatever, to I don't really need to accept any kind of empiricism in the world because I don't like it. Because my reality is more comfortable for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I would look at religion as like the original fake news.
Right? I never thought about it that way.
And so I think that's what's happened, is that even though you can say that we're an aggressively secularizing nation in a lot of ways, I think there's still great deference to faith. And I'm a big believer in freedom of religion, a huge advocate of freedom of thought and freedom of faith, and freedom of worship up until when your rights bang into somebody else's, right? But in terms of practice, denying your children medical care is obviously that goes beyond any sensible idea of freedom of religion. But I think there's been such a great deference to faith in the history of our country, and that it's just kind of now leaked out everywhere, that we now have to accept that people, it's not just on the margins, it's like openly things that very obviously provably did not happen yesterday, that people would just say, no, they totally did.
Yeah. There's this weird way or weird thing that people do now that everybody's online, is that you can do discovery in reverse, and what I mean is, like, you can have the idea that you're, like, you can feel that you're anti this, or you can feel a way about something, and then you can go and find whatever, news article or fake bit of, like, just, some contrarian or whatever that reinforces that idea,
Right,
like,
which doesn't mean that there aren't, like, discernible facts, and I think people are obliged to try to pick through it without spending every waking moment doing it. I think that's important. But yeah, there's just, like, there's, like, mini holy texts, millions of mini holy texts being produced every month, right? You could look at it that way. It's like, here's your Bible for today. Your Bible for today says that this stuff that last week that happened or didn't happen last week went down this way, this way, this way. So saith, whatever media deity or, manipulative origin.
Yeah.
What? Oh, go ahead and ask your question. Ask away.
Okay. Well, I was going to ask, because I feel like you're a good person.
This is about the mountain of dog shit in my other room. I'm really done talking about that.
Okay.
Don't bring it up.
All right, I'll move on. No, I think you're a good person to ask. This is something that, world culturally speaking, how can you be somebody like an ethically conscious critic of religion, I guess? Because for me, it's like, I'm not knowledgeable enough. Like, I'm not out here, like, making openly racist remarks and stuff, but I feel like when you do wade into the territory of religion, like, a lot of the culture and race can be tied into that. So, like, how can somebody be?
For me, the key is not believing that any one faith system is more or less crazy than another. That's the first thing, is that you have to accept that what you're criticizing is the supernatural claims in all of them. Not that Scientology is so crazy or Mormonism is so crazy. No, they're equally as baseless in observable fact as any other faith system. Certainly, some religions have played more powerful negative roles in terms of shaping the world. And, like, I would say, growing up in a predominantly Christian country, I have a particular axe to grind with Christianity. But, understandably, somebody who grows up with a different background might feel, more suffocated. And I wasn't raised in a particularly religious context. I certainly wasn't raised in a domineering conservative religious context. I was made to go to church for a time, but I think that's the key. The first key is that, yes, being equal in your criticism and saying, like, look, I criticize the same, I'm not criticizing your culture. I criticize this in my culture, and I've been criticizing it in my culture longer and more vehemently than I have in yours. So please understand that, like, you're not a special target here. If we're talking about engaging with people from different backgrounds than what a quote unquote average American might have been raised around. The second point is not to go into every conversation wanting to, like, talk about,
Judaism,
the ways that religion has failed the world. Right. I'm not an evangelist for a lack of faith. But being able to talk about religion without needing to inject criticisms, because there's, lots of things about the history of religion that are interesting. And so this was the other piece of what I was going to say is the reason we couldn't do our initially scheduled at the date you had proposed for me to have this conversation originally was because I've been doing this big editing project as a favor to a friend. And my friend Sayed was first a client of my partner for work on his English, although he has very high level English skills. And then she told me, she was like, oh, I have this client Sayed. He's Afghan, he's a religion and philosophy scholar, knows a lot about the Middle East. You guys should talk. And I was like, oh yeah, we totally should talk. So even though he lives in DC, I have only actually met him once in person, but over the pandemic, we had a series of video calls, and we were actually thinking the idea was to maybe do a podcast where we talked about the trajectory of his life. He's a little older than me, mixed in with teaching about the religion and politics and culture of the Middle East and the Muslim world, because I'm really interested in the Middle East. And so we had these conversations, and I took notes, but I kind of wasn't ever organized enough to really put it into podcast form. Maybe it's like on a way back burner. We'll see if that ever happens. But I also did a couple short editing jobs for him, short, like 4 or 5 page things he wrote. He needed a native English speaker to polish it. And then he told me he got a book contract, and he asked me to be like the first reader editor for his book. And I was like, is there any way the publisher would want to like pay me anything for that? And he said no. And he showed me the contract, and he's getting paid nothing basically. So I was like, okay, you're not getting paid anything.
Yeah.
Like, all right, this is going to be a lot of work, but it'll be a good exercise. I'll learn things. I'll help you out. Line on a resume should it ever come to that. And his book is called The Making of Shia Ayatollahs. So it's basically a history of the legal / spiritual leaders in the Shia faith, going back to the beginning of Islam up to present day. It's not really a political book, which would have been more in my lane. Like I'd be much more interested in, who are the guys who run Iran, and where did they come from, and how did they get there? That's more my interest. But this is like more theological and practical, but it's a work of like religious history, even though that's his background. He's Shia himself. And so it was a lot of work. Like, it took a lot of rewriting, and I think it's only going to end up being maybe 200 pages. It's not that long as a book goes, but we submitted the first draft a couple months ago. He got some feedback, and his deadline for the final draft was actually last night. So I was up until 3 this morning with him, like working on final edits for this book. I was helping a friend with a work of like, an academic work that is of value to understanding this part of the world. Does it put my stamp of approval on the faith? I don't think so. I don't know. I mean, my name's going to be mentioned in the thanks list. So, but like, I didn't, I thought about that, and I was like, does this in any way contradict what I believe in a fundamental level? And I didn't feel that it did, even though we're talking about, even the more liberalizing figures in this history are still conservative by basically any standards, and they all ultimately believe that authority comes from a god. But I mean, number one, I'm interested in the Middle East, and being interested in the Middle East means you have to be interested somewhat in learning about Islam.
Yeah.
And so it was, I did learn from the book. I could tell you a lot more about the history of the Shia faith than I could have 6 months ago. Some of it was definitely in one ear and out the other, but potentially I don't know if anyone other than maybe Wonder Wonk would be interested in this on the board, because I know he has a background in some of this stuff. But yeah, like Sayed knows I'm very non-religious. I know that he is, that his faith has been probably the single. Well, that's not fair. He's also, he got his PhD in Iran, and he wrote it on maybe Nietzsche. I think it was on Nietzsche. It was on like Western philosophy. So he has that background too. But his father was a religious figure, and he was raised in a religious background, and he grew up in Iran, kind of surrounded by that, and went through religious schooling, and just like ate it all up in an academic kind of way. It's funny. He's a total egghead. I asked him last year if he knew who Kanye West was, and he didn't know who Kanye West was. And he's lived in the US for like 8 or 10 years or something. You know.
Nice.
But he really like sticks in his lane. So that's I was up late doing that last night. What it felt good to finish it, and it felt really good to help him out. Like there's really nobody else who could have played that role for him. The manuscript was not in any shape to be handed over to just a proofreader at the editor at the publishing house.
Yeah.
But to find somebody who was willing to like put in that time and to do it like really seriously, you know, I know 1/bajillionth% about these topics as what he does, but I also know more than the average American. So I was able to catch a lot of stuff, you know, a lot of little mistakes that I think would have blown by a lot of people. So that felt good. I would put this in the humble brag thread, right?
Yeah.
I spent a lot of unpaid labor helping a friend
put
out a book that he probably would not have been able to do without me. Again, despite the fact that he has super high level English skills, they just in writing don't always work out. So yeah, that's I'm a contributor to both the thumbs downing of religion and also a little bit promoting Shiism.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, Islam's a great example because that's, I mean, especially if you're an American with, you know, all the quote, you know, feelings that this country has had since September 11th and shit.
I'm very much on guard. I think Islam for me is a great personal example because I'm very on guard against Islamophobia, right? The idea that Islam is a uniquely evil threat, which is bullshit. But I also am not going to listen to people just being like, oh, Islam's a religion of peace. Well, sorry. No, it doesn't. You can't just, that's a platitude. That doesn't mean, it'd be like saying Christianity is a religion of peace or Hinduism is a religion of peace. Like, maybe some fragment of it is very dedicated to that concept, but you cannot practically say that that's true. So this goes back to your original point. How do you balance that, right? How do you criticize a belief system without like bullying it or beating up on it?
Mm-hmm. Like, how do we get to a world without religion? You know, like there's.
Oh, we don't. I mean, that's not going to happen.
Do you think ever?
I have no illusions about that, but
you don't think it's possible in like hundreds of years, or like if you expand the timeline and get real science fiction-y and imaginative with it?
No. There's always going to be people who want to believe, and they will believe. And this comes back to, you know, I mean, I'm in no shape to have a deep discussion about human nature, right?
Yeah.
What's really human nature and what isn't.
Yeah.
But yeah, the idea of cleansing a world of billions of people of the concept of faith is just not going to happen. So
yeah.
And I accept, like everything else, that exists on a spectrum. I appreciate that some people wield their faith for what I would consider good, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some people use it as a vehicle for better things, and some people use it as a vehicle for worse things, just like any other belief system. I just think that you're kind of setting out on the wrong foot when you pin your beliefs to the concept of a deity that has said it is so.
Mm-hmm.
I just think you start off on really shaky footing, and there's no need to start off on that footing. That's my criticism. It's like, it's okay if that's what gets you to, you know, where you agree with me 99% on other stuff that we agree is great. But I think there's still a little quicksand there.
Yeah, fair enough. I edit the news. This one's for JRM. He loves that thread. You said that you didn't have any Photoshop skills, and
that's not fun. None of it is Photoshop. It's all drawing with my finger.
Yeah. Granted, it's really rudimentary, but you at least know how to use the eraser tool and write. Yeah,
and that was part of the appeal of it to me, was having the that sort of, I mean, even though it's entirely digital technologies, a sort of analog grounding, right? Yeah. That I'm not photoshopping.
Yeah.
It's meant to look handmade.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I hope other people appreciate that aspect of it as well. And yeah, I've definitely lost steam, and I wish I could crank them out like I did for a period of a year or whatever in there. But I think that was the golden age, and it's done. And I like to make people laugh. So if that makes people laugh, then great.
Yeah. There's some great ones in there. I still want to maybe do some printouts or something.
Oh yeah, we should revisit that.
Yeah.
Because I love the idea of having digital media only exist in distribution form in print media. It's so fucking dumb. I love it. Because I've resisted, the obvious thing to do with these is to start an Instagram page, and I've just dug in my contrarian heels and been like, nope, I haven't done this at any other point in my life. I'm not doing it now. It's VLV and friends is the only people who've gotten it.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that about it.
Yeah. For it to magically appear between, to go from there onto 25 coffee tables would be a funny thing, I think.
Yeah, I love that idea. I wish I could keep up the pace, but it's variety of factors, right? You can only make the same visual gag so many times. There's so much truly horrible news that one of my ground rules for myself was not mocking the tragedies of average people. Would I mock the tragedies of presidents and celebrities? Yes, but I'm not gonna make jokes about a boat sinking,
right?
Or a hurricane or something like that.
Yeah.
And so it does, and COVID hit, and Trump came along, and there's
You're pretty limited.
A lot of bad shit in the news the last couple of years that I, if I didn't want to compound people's sorrows, I had to avoid certain topics.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't think there's anybody listening to this.
I agree.
That hasn't opened that thread at least once, but I implore you to do so. Take a look at John's handiwork. It's not something I can really describe, because that's what's the fun, and I don't want to sit here and be
like what Meat Crimes was saying about the sort of where he was looking for thoughtful feedback, but he sort of acknowledged that there was his ineffable characteristics. He didn't want it to just be, derivative of one or another style that he appreciated.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's the same thing for me, is that my hope is that there's nothing quite like this out there.
Yeah.
But that's so hard to do nowadays. To make jokes that no one else has made. That's really hard to do.
Yeah. No, I think it is wholly unique to it's a little VLV treasure for sure. And so just go open the thread, have a laugh. I don't. Yeah, I also can't. I don't want to just be and this one he cropped out blah blah blah. That doesn't really work.
Yeah.
So.
No. Although it would take the reduction of digital to analog to spoken description would make it even stupider, which I would endorse.
Well, maybe we can do a limited edition tape. 10 tapes where I'm just going through the thread and describing out loud the photos, the picture, the Photoshop and headline, and then just that'll be
then there's just the occasional non-specific German march edited in.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like we've covered a lot of ground. Is there anything that you want to ask me about or talk about anymore?
Or well, I don't want to belabor the end for our listener. I don't want them to feel like, wow, the last 10 minutes was really just them like fumbling around, not knowing how to wrap it up. So
no, I mean, if we strike something interesting or what I think could be interesting, we'll run with it. But if it's, I won't. I'll edit it out if it sucks or something.
Yeah, no, you won't. I've listened to some of these.
That's the trap, my friend.
Yeah. I guess I would end by saying that for whatever reason at this point in my life, I'm interested in more engagement with people on the board on a personal level, whereas like didn't matter so much to me anymore. Like I like the idea of meeting people or having this I've always kept a pretty low key online profile without having social media and at least I don't know about now, but it's pretty. I'm not that easy to find online or to find pictures of unless you know what band, like a live shot of a band, right?
Yeah.
And I that was a conscious choice, not because I have anything to hide other than a room full of rotting, moldering dog shit bags. But yeah, I kind of I certainly don't want to be, this is not a bedroom anonymous black metal project that you are never supposed to know of the accursed entity behind it. Like, fuck that. That's goofy shit.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd happy to be out there like this, and people can critique my accent. I will say, John Martin, he may have, I think there's a little Virginia spin on it because it does not sound like the full-blown Pennsylvania, Maryland accent, but man, that O is out there, buddy. Yeah, it's out there. And I grew up in southeastern Pennsylvania, so I grew up around folks with that accent. It's not just Philly. I mean, Philly is a very much more specific even accent, but yeah, it's eastern Pennsylvania and Maryland up to a point, and I wonder if it continues on down the coast through Virginia. I never knew of a Virginian to have that O.
Yeah, well, he's got it.
It's not a criticism, right? All I said was it's the dumbest sounding accent in America. I can say that because I grew up there.
Yeah, dude. Cool. Well,
and shout out to Jay Margaritas, both for being a wonderfully entertaining poster who I'm so glad has been recovered from whatever spider hole he was in for a while there. But yeah, for bringing up the Dead Milkmen. I mean, Dead Milkmen were a big band for me. That was my first show. See, I think I worry that I do it sometimes without even noticing because I have that background.
Before you know, you're going to get roasted for something. Yeah.
Yep. Before you know it. But yeah, the Dead Milkmen have it big time.
Have what? The
29 kids all named Jerome. Yeah, they've got the Pennsylvania accent.
Is that Hoy adjacent?
Ooh. Again, you're pulling me out of my depths here. I don't think so. I think taxonomically it would fall in a different category.
Okay. I've never listened to Dead Milkmen.
I would exhort you in the strongest terms. And the funny thing is that they were.
I would have been a better example than Crass maybe when I was trying to think of seminal punk bands.
Well, the thing is the Dead Milkmen are goofy, and in general, I don't love goofy punk or goofy music in general, but I loved the Dead Milkmen. Dean Clean went to my high school. His dad taught there, although this was before my time. So yeah, it's like a local connection, and I think it was their last show was my first show at the Troc in Philly in what would that have been?
95, it says.
95, I would say, yeah. So lifelong warm feelings. I could do Punk Rock Girl from Heart in its entirety to this day.
Nice.
My best friend and I would annoy the other dorks on the band bus by singing that constantly. Well, we mixed it up, in fairness, with Ice Ice Baby and the Humpty Dance, which I also think I could pull out. I am not going to. I'd like to leave a little bit of mystery.
Oh God, are they pop punk?
They are not. They are not pop punk.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is NoFX pop punk?
Yes, they are.
Okay. I'm trying to get
but also arguably maybe melodic hardcore. I mean, that's the line that they ride. Well, the Dead Milkmen, it's some of it's pretty bouncy. You like bouncy, right?
Oh, I love me some bounce for sure.
But just great lyrics. And a lot of Philly specific references. Philly area specific references, like channel 57, right? That's mentioned in Stewart. That was one of the UHF channels that I got growing up.
Oh.
That sort of thing. So
yeah.
Great band.
Sick.
Start with Big Lizard or Beelzebub.
All right, will do. Noted. If Steve Reich, Dead Milkmen, Here I Come. Maybe I'll play them simultaneously.
And Ayatollah Khomeini.
Yeah, some good speeches there. Shouts out JMF Marguerites. I'm glad he's back too.
Is he lined up? You got him in the sights yet?
I do, but
you don't have to reveal the inner workings of your.
No. I haven't reached out to him officially yet, though.
This is it. This is breaking information.
Yeah. I think
JMF, please do not turn down an invitation to do this.
Yeah, I would like to talk to him because he's a mystery kind of. He's like a goofs only poster, like jokes and music, which I highly respect. And but that leaves a lot of like, who is this person? To like, I have no idea. The only I do know he's really tall, but that's about all I know. Besides the Simpsons.
True, yeah, I'm more of a jokes and politics poster, and
yeah.
If you post about politics, then you kind of wear a lot of stuff on your sleeves, and there's takes away some of the guesswork of what you're about. Whereas anybody can like any kind of music, and it doesn't really necessarily tell you anything about them. But yeah, he's another one who I feel like our musical tastes don't overlap in some significant ways, which is why I don't think we've engaged about music as much. Like, I'm not a power pop person. I'm not a reggae person. I'm trying to think of other stuff. I know he loves the Dead Milkmen, so we can connect on that.
Yeah, you got that.
But yeah, such a high percentage of hits to misses with the goofs. I highly respect that.
Yeah.
To
that's the kind of
have the wit and to execute. That's like the highest praise I could give to someone.
Sure, yeah. I don't have the restraint to. Well, I don't have the wit, but I also don't have the restraint. So it's a deadly combination.
And with that,
I got to say it's been fun talking to you once again. 4 or 5 years later. Thanks for chatting. It's always nice hanging out with you on VLV. I'm sure I'll see you there.
Yeah, you will, for better or for worse, man.
All right.
I think I will. I'm gonna ride that train until it completely derails.
Oh yeah,
Too
you and me,
invested- too
you and me
invested
both.
at this point. Yeah.
We're go. Yeah, until it goes up in smoke, we're there. Take care of that dog shit, dude. I can smell it almost through the screen here.
But it's like not a bad smell, right?
No, oddly enough, it's not horrible, but
It's a smell of well, I won't. I haven't actually read Proust, but I could still say it's maybe Proustian, redolent of past accomplishments, highlights in my career as an accidental business person. But it is all that you're left with in the end is the records you blow the income on and the shit that comes out the other end.
All right, man. With that, I'll see you later.
Take care.
See
Thanks,
you, man.
man.
Yeah. Bye. Well, there you have it, folks. That was Apraxia. And I enjoyed talking to him very much. Thanks for coming on the program, sir. And thank you for naming this podcast. Again, that was his handiwork. Very clever. Thank you to Barrick for the original idea. And thank you to Red Dwarf for hosting this podcast for streamability on all those handy dandy services out there and making us the #1 podcast in America right now. I will see y'all hopefully soon with your next guest, the Olsen twins. Until then, see you on the board.